Chapter 1921. At this time, most people had finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep, and Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt uneasy. He felt that he had missed something, but he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brains. Thus, he sat in front of the desk without moving, staring blankly. Da-da-da-da-da. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves came from the north side of the inn. Zhao Dian came back to his senses and quickly stood up. He strode to the window near the north side of the room. Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he opened the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the north side of the street. The officials have been searching for an entire day. Why aren't they stopping at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian subconsciously muttered. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he said softly, "That's not right. Why would the officials send cavalry to search for people? Could it be that they are going to capture people?" Speaking of this, Zhao Dian suddenly remembered the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon, and a bad premonition rose in his heart. "Xianyi, Sky Eagle." Zhao Dian frowned and shouted in a low voice. Although there was no one else in this room other than him, and there was no one guarding the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now. If there were guards outside the door, it would be too conspicuous. The room next to the heavenly room was occupied by two of his subordinates, two of his most powerful subordinates. Although there was a wall between the two rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far inferior to the modern era. Moreover, his two subordinates were martial arts experts with sharp senses. Zhao Dian believed that they would be able to hear his words. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward and opened the door. Two men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Sky Eagle and the short one was Xianyi. Xianyi wasn't short. He was the height of an ordinary person. The main reason was that Sky Eagle was too tall, so when the two of them walked together, he appeared shorter. "Guard Master, are you looking for us?" After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the two to the northern window. The two bowed and cupped their fists towards Zhao Dian. At this time, most people had already finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep. Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt a little uneasy. He kept feeling that he seemed to have missed out on something, but he couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brains. Thus, he sat motionlessly in front of the desk, staring blankly into space. Da-da-da-da-da. Suddenly, a flurry of horse hooves came from the north side of the inn. Zhao Dian abruptly came back to his senses and quickly stood up. With 2 strides, he arrived at the window near the north side of the room. The Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he opened the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the street to the north. The officials have been searching for the whole day, why haven't they stopped at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian muttered subconsciously. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he said softly, "That's not right. Why would the officials send cavalry to search for people? Don't tell me they are going to capture people?" Speaking of this, Zhao Dian suddenly recalled the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon. In his heart, a bad premonition suddenly arose. "Xianyi Tianying." Zhao Dian frowned and then called out softly. Although there was no one else in this room other than him, and there was no one guarding outside the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now. If there were guards outside the door, it would be too conspicuous. But the room next to the heavenly room was occupied by two of his subordinates, two of his most powerful subordinates. Although there was a wall between the two rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far from comparable to the modern era. Moreover, his 2 subordinates were martial arts experts, and their 5 senses were sharp. Zhao Dian believed that they would be able to hear his words. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward to open the door, and 2 men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Tianying and the short one was Xianyi. Xianyi wasn't short, but he was the height of an ordinary person. The main reason was that Tianying was too tall, so when the 2 of them walked together, he appeared shorter. Guard leader, are you looking for us? After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the 2 of them to the window in the north, and the 2 of them bowed and cupped their fists to Zhao Dian. At this time, most people had finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep, and Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt uneasy. He kept feeling that he had missed something, but he couldn't figure out why no matter how hard he racked his brains. Therefore, he just sat in front of the desk, motionless, in a daze. Da-da-da-da-da. Suddenly, there was a flurry of horse hooves from the north of the inn. Zhao Dian came back to his senses abruptly, then quickly stood up and strode to the window near the north side of the room. The Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he opened the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the street to the north. The officials have been searching for the entire day. Why aren't they stopping at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian muttered subconsciously. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "That's not right. Why would the officials send cavalry to search for people? Could it be that they are going to capture people?" At this point, Zhao Dian suddenly recalled the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon, and a bad premonition arose in his heart. "Xianyi Tianying." Zhao Dian frowned, then called out in a low voice. Although there was no one else in this room other than him, and there were no guards outside the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now, and it would be too conspicuous if there were guards outside the door. The room next to the heavenly guest room was occupied by 2 of his subordinates, 2 of his most powerful subordinates. Although there was a wall between the 2 rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far inferior to the modern era. Moreover, his 2 subordinates were martial arts experts, and their 5 senses were sharp. Zhao Dian believed that they would definitely be able to hear him. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward to open the door, and 2 men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Tianying and the short one was Xianyi. Xianyi was actually not short. The height of an ordinary person was mainly because Tianying was too tall, so when the 2 of them walked together, he appeared shorter. "Guard master, are you looking for us?" After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the 2 of them to the window in the north, and the 2 of them bowed to Zhao Dian with cupped fists. At this time, most people had finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep, and Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt a little uneasy. He kept feeling that he seemed to have missed something, but he couldn't figure out why no matter how hard he racked his brains. So, he just sat in front of the desk, motionless, in a daze. Da-da-da-da-da. Suddenly, there was a chaotic sound of horse hooves coming from the north of the inn. Zhao Dian suddenly came back to his senses, then quickly stood up and strode to the window in the room near the north. Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly guest room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he opened the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the street in the north. The people from the government have been searching for the whole day. Why are they still not stopping at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian subconsciously muttered to himself. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "That's not right. Why would the government send cavalry to search for people? Could it be that they are going to arrest people? Speaking of this, Zhao Dian suddenly remembered the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon. In his heart, a bad premonition suddenly rose. Xian Yi, Sky Eagle. Zhao Dian frowned, then called out in a low voice. Although there was no one else in this room other than him, and there was no one guarding outside the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now. If there were still guards outside the door, it would be too conspicuous. The room next to the heavenly guest room was occupied by 2 of his men, 2 of the most powerful men. Although there was a wall between the 2 rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far inferior to that of the modern era. Moreover, his 2 men were martial arts experts, and their 5 senses were sharp. Zhao Dian believed that they would definitely be able to hear his words. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward to open the door, and 2 men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Sky Eagle, and the short one was Xian Yi. If one were to say that Xian Yi was short, he was actually not short. The height of an ordinary person was mainly because Sky Eagle was too tall, so when the 2 of them walked together, he appeared shorter. Guard Master, are you looking for us? After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the 2 of them to the window on the north side, and the 2 of them bowed to Zhao Dian with cupped fists. At this time, most people had finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep, and Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt uneasy. He kept feeling that he seemed to have missed something, but he could not figure out why no matter how hard he racked his brains. So, he just sat in front of the study table, motionless in a daze. Da-da-da-da. Suddenly, a flurry of horse hooves came from the north side of the inn. Zhao Dian abruptly came back to his senses, then quickly stood up and strode to the window on the north side of the room. Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly guest room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he pushed open the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the north side of the street. The officials have been searching for an entire day in the day. Why aren't they stopping at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian muttered subconsciously. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "That's not right. Why would the officials send cavalry to search for people? Could it be that they are going to capture people?" At this point, Zhao Dian suddenly recalled the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon, and a bad premonition suddenly arose in his heart. Xian Yi, Sky Eagle. Zhao Dian frowned, then called out softly. Although there was no one else in this room other than him, and there were no guards outside the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now. If there were guards outside the door, it would be too conspicuous. The room next to the heavenly guest room was occupied by 2 of his subordinates, 2 of his most powerful subordinates. Although there was a wall between the 2 rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far inferior to that of the modern era. Moreover, his 2 subordinates were martial arts experts with sharp senses. Zhao Dian believed that they would definitely be able to hear him. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward to open the door, and 2 men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Sky Eagle, and the short one was Xian Yi. Xian Yi was actually not short. The height of an ordinary person was mainly because Sky Eagle was too tall, so when the 2 of them walked together, he appeared shorter. Guard Master, are you looking for us? After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the 2 of them to the window on the north side, and the 2 of them bowed to Zhao Dian with cupped fists. At this time, most people had finished their dinner and were preparing to sleep, and Zhao Dian was no exception. However, after dinner, Zhao Dian suddenly felt uneasy. He kept feeling that he seemed to have missed something, but he couldn't figure out why no matter how hard he racked his brains. Therefore, he just sat in front of the desk, motionless and spaced out. Da. Suddenly, there was a flurry of horse hooves coming from the north side of the inn. Zhao Dian came back to his senses abruptly, then quickly stood up and strode to the window on the north side of the room. Tongfu Inn was located in the south of the city, and the heavenly room that Zhao Dian was staying in was located in the northwest corner of the inn. After he pushed open the window, he saw a fire dragon running wildly on the north side of the street. The people from the government have been searching for the entire day. Why are they still not stopping at night? Seeing this scene, Zhao Dian subconsciously muttered to himself. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he whispered, "That's not right. Why would the government send cavalry to search for people? Could it be that they are going to capture people?" Speaking of this, Zhao Dian suddenly remembered the fire in the long alley in the south of the city in the afternoon. In his heart, a bad premonition suddenly rose. "Xianyi, Sky Eagle." Zhao Dian frowned, then called out in a low voice. Although there was no one else in this room except for him, and there was no one guarding outside the door, he was trying his best to hide his identity now, and if there were guards outside the door, it would be too conspicuous. The room next to the heavenly room was occupied by two of his men, two of the most powerful men. Although there was a wall between the two rooms, the soundproofing of the buildings in this era was far from comparable to the modern era. Moreover, his two men were martial arts experts, and their five senses were sharp. Zhao Dian believed that they would definitely be able to hear his words. As expected, not long after Zhao Dian finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside the room. Zhao Dian went forward to open the door, and two men, one tall and one short, walked in. The tall one was Sky Eagle, and the short one was Xianyi. To say that Xianyi was short, he was actually not short. The height of an ordinary person was mainly because Sky Eagle was too tall, so when the two of them walked together, he appeared shorter. "Guard Master, are you looking for us?" After closing the door, Zhao Dian led the two of them to the window on the north side, and the two of them bowed to Zhao Dian with cupped fists. Chapter 1922. There was no moon tonight. There would be no moonlight shining in from outside the room, and it was even darker inside the room because the lights were off. Wang Li could not see where the old woman was in the room, but he was a martial arts master after all. With his sharp senses and the old woman's breathing in the room, he could easily determine the old woman's exact location. What he needed to do now was to stab the dagger in his hand into the old woman's throat so that she would die before she could resist or call for help. This was the effect Wang Kuei wanted to achieve, to make Star Wolf's mother disappear without anyone noticing. As there was no light in the room, when Wang Li pulled out the dagger from his sleeve, it naturally did not reflect any cold light. However, after he rudely pushed open the door, he did not say a word. The old woman in the room also realized that something was wrong. At the last moment of her life, the old woman opened her mouth and said, You're not little Chui. Who are you?" Wang Li's lips curled into a cold smile. He did not speak but sped up and quickly stabbed the dagger in his hand at the old woman. The strong wind caused by his rapid movement and the cold air emitted by the dagger made the old woman even more certain that the person who came in was not the two maidservants who often served her. She instinctively smelled a trace of danger, a trace of the danger of death. She subconsciously wanted to call for help, but perhaps because she was too nervous, or perhaps because she thought of how her son had been running around and working hard to earn money to treat her illness for more than a year, she felt that she might as well die so that she would not be a burden to her son. Therefore, she clearly had a moment to call for help, but in the end, she did not say anything. She just leaned against the bed and quietly waited for death to descend. Outside the room, the maidservant little Chui was still desperately running into the room, and the dagger in Wang Li's hand was less than 5 inches away from the old woman's throat. It seemed that everything was too late. No one could stop the old woman from dying under Wang Li's dagger. However, an accident happened in this impossible situation. Whoosh! At this moment, the roof of the house suddenly began to collapse from the middle. Dozens of tiles fell from the roof without any warning. Wang Li subconsciously used his movement technique to dodge a tile that flew towards him. Then, he looked up and vaguely saw a black shadow descending from the sky. Wang Li was shocked. At this moment, he could no longer care about the identity of that person. No matter how stupid he was, he understood that something had happened tonight. The most important thing now was to complete the mission Wang Kuei had given him. As for the rest, he had to kill the old woman in the room first. Hence, Wang Li did not care about the person who had descended from the sky. His figure flashed as he continued to stab the old woman on the bed with the dagger in his hand. But right at this moment, Wang Li suddenly felt a gust of icy cold wind slash towards his back. "Humph! How dare you!" It turned out that he had sensed Wang Li's actions. That person could not help but be furious. He pulled out the long saber at his waist and slashed at Wang Li's back at an even faster speed. His speed was much faster than Wang Li's, and most importantly, because the speed at which he brandished his blade was too fast, the blade that was filled with true qi already faintly carried a strong blade wind. If Wang Li did not turn around to defend, this blade wind would hit his back before he could stab the old woman, and he would be seriously injured. After a short consideration, Wang Li quickly made a decision. He decided to block the other party's attack first, and then find an opportunity to kill the old woman on the bed. He turned around like lightning and channeled all his genuine qi into the dagger. With a clang, the dagger made a metallic sound. Then, he actually used the dagger as a sword and directly waved the dagger, slashing at the oncoming saber qi. Bang! The saber qi and the sword qi intersected, and there was a dull sonic boom in the air. Then, Wang Li was directly shocked by the violent eruption of true qi. In fact, before Wang Li took the attack, he had tried to overestimate the strength of the other party. After all, judging from the speed of the other party's saber and the strong saber qi, the other party must be a master. However, after this round, he found that he had still underestimated the strength of the other party, because the other party's strength was actually above his. Grand Master Middle Stage. The other party was actually a martial artist at the Grand Master Middle Stage. When had there been a strong man at the Grand Master Middle Stage in Taiyuan City? At this moment, Wang Li's head was full of question marks, and his heart was full of confusion. Who are you? Wang Li was shocked by the other party's casual attack, and he forced himself to swallow back the blood that he was about to spit out. At this time, he raised his head, looked at the master who had descended from the sky, and asked in a deep voice. Now that things had developed to this point, he knew very well that he had no way to kill the old woman on the bed under the other party's nose. As long as he attacked the old woman, the other party would be able to seriously injure him before he succeeded, because the other party's martial arts strength was a whole small realm higher than his. Unless he was willing to risk being seriously injured or dying, he had no chance to kill the old woman at this time. But the problem was that Wang Li was not willing to exchange his life with an old woman. He was still young, and it was not easy for him to have the strength and status he had today. His life was not very precious, but it was definitely more precious than the old woman's life. Instead of risking his life, it was better to ask the other party's identity. If the other party was just passing by occasionally and meddling in other people's business, he could use the name of the Wang family to make him retreat. However, Wang Li was destined to be disappointed. Humph! Wang Li, can't you even recognize my voice? In the darkness, the man snorted coldly and asked instead of answering. Hearing this voice, Wang Li was suddenly stunned, and his whole person was stunned. After a moment, he finally came to his senses and said in disbelief, Wang Chenggu? It's you? You? Why are you here? Humph! Why am I here? I should be the one asking you this, right? Wang Chenggu sneered and continued, as the dignified second commander of the Wang family, instead of resting at home at night, You came to this remote place to kill a weak old woman. Do you know what you are doing? You are making the entire Wang family unjust." When Wang Li heard this, he secretly cursed in his heart. If his purpose of coming here to kill was reported by Wang Qingwu to Wang Yu, then the matter of Wang Kuei and Wang Xinyuan colluding with the Turks might also be exposed. At that time, only a dead end awaited them. Kill? Wang Qingwu, don't slander me. I just happened to pass by and came to visit my good brother's elder. Who said I came here to kill? Wang Li's eyes turned and his thoughts turned quickly, and he defended himself. Anyway, no matter what, he would not admit his purpose of coming here in front of Wang Qingwu. Wang Qingwu could not help but ridicule. Happened to pass by? Humph. I think you came here to kill to silence, right? During the day, the Imperial Army caught an assassin, but the assassin's identity is unknown, so the provincial governor's mansion is looking for clues in the city. Could this house be the assassin's home, and you came here to kill to silence? In fact, this was just Wang Qingwu's guess. He wanted to use this to trick Wang Li. He was not sure if the assassin caught by the Imperial Army in the afternoon was related to Wang Li, and he was even less sure that this was the assassin's home. Wang Qingwu would never have thought that his guess was infinitely close to the truth of the matter. Wang Li's heart jumped when he heard this. At this time, if the lights in the house were lit, Wang Qingwu would definitely see his expression change. Nonsense. What assassin? What killing to silence? If you want to convict someone, you can always find a pretext. Wang Qingwu wanted to say something, but at this time, the old woman in the dark spoke. She asked anxiously, "Young master, what did you say just now? You said that my Cheng is wanted by the authorities? That's impossible. My son has always been honest and dutiful, and all these years, he has been working by the Wang family's second master's side. How could he be wanted by the authorities?" The old woman's words were nothing if it was said on a normal day, but to Wang Qingwu, it could be said to be a divine assistance. Wang Qingwu's eyes lit up when he heard this. He did not answer the old woman's question, but said coldly to Wang Li, "Humph! Family head's guess was right. Second elder is indeed related to the assassin in the afternoon. Wang Li, if you know what's good for you, then obediently follow me back to family head to ask for forgiveness. Don't force me to take action." Wang Li really regretted that he did not kill the old woman earlier. Otherwise, there would not be so much trouble now. It was impossible for him to surrender without putting up a fight. He sneered and said, "Humph! I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. If you want to ask for forgiveness, you should go back and ask for forgiveness yourself. Although your martial arts are better than mine, if we really fight, you won't be able to get away with it." "Alright. That's what you said." Wang Qingwu was furious when he heard this. He raised his long sword and was about to attack Wang Li when suddenly, a rumbling sound of horse hooves cut through the quiet night sky. Then, the sound of horse hooves stopped at the door of the house. Wang Qingwu's face was slightly shocked. Thinking of what Wang Yu had told him earlier, he hurriedly said, "Wang Li, if you follow me to family head to ask for forgiveness now, family head may spare your life. However, if you still insist on fighting with me, not only will you alert the neighbors nearby, those people who suddenly appear outside the door will also spread the news of this matter. By then, not only will you be finished, the entire Wang clan will be finished as well." Before coming, Wang Yu had told Wang Li that he must find out whether the second branch had anything to do with the assassin that the Imperial Army caught in the afternoon before the authorities arrived. After all, family scandals should not be aired in public. Now that there was a group of people from another power gathered outside the door, if the two of them did not withdraw now, they would definitely be completely exposed. Chapter 1923. The entire Wang clan is finished. So what? If you hadn't insisted on interfering, I would have completed my mission long ago, and I wouldn't have caused any more trouble. If the Wang clan is finished because of this, it's also because of you, Wang Chungu. In the room, Wang Li's expression changed slightly. He had naturally heard the clamor of horse hooves outside. The mission Wang Kuei had given him was to make Star Wolf's mother disappear from the world without anyone noticing. But now, not only had Wang Chungu appeared at the scene, but there was also a group of unidentified people outside the residence. He knew that he could not perfectly complete the mission Wang Kuei had given him, so he simply stopped denying it and went all out. Hearing this, Wang Chungu was so angry that he laughed. Humph! Sophistry! It was clearly you and the second elder who conspired against the Wang clan, causing the entire Wang clan to be disloyal and unjust. Forget it, now is not the time to argue about this. I will take you and this old madam back together. If you restrain yourself before the cliff and cooperate with the clan head to investigate some of the illegal things the second elder has done recently, the clan head might let you off. This is the only way out for you. He originally wanted to argue with Wang Li a little more, but time waited for no one. Seeing that the group of people outside the courtyard was about to enter, the most important thing for him was to subdue Wang Li, then take the old woman on the bed and leave this place first. It was not that he wanted to protect Wang Li, but if Wang Li was determined to go against him at this moment, Wang Kuei would definitely be captured because of this, but it would also implicate the entire Wang family. Wang Kuei wanted to investigate, but it would be best if the person who found out about Wang Kuei's illegal deeds was someone from the Wang clan. Only in this way could he make up for his mistakes to the greatest extent. In the future, when Li Er was convicted, he could also let the rest of the Wang clan off. As for the old woman on the bed, it was best not to fall into the hands of the authorities or the Imperial Army. Otherwise, their conversation tonight would be completely exposed. Haha. It's too late. Can't you tell? We're already surrounded. Moreover, not only does she know that I'm here tonight, but the two maids outside also know. Wang Qingwu's words did move Wang Li a little, but it was only a little. He was not willing to fail just like that. He laughed coldly, and then took advantage of the time when Wang Chungu was listening to the movements outside. He swung his dagger at lightning speed, fiercely stabbing towards the old woman on the bed. How dare you! General Eagle, according to the assassin, this should be the house. In Baosheng Lane, in front of a dilapidated house, there were dozens of armored soldiers gathered. Each of them was riding war horses and holding torches. They formed a fan shape and surrounded the house. The leader was a burly man in casual clothes. He pointed at the house in front of him and said to a young general beside him. This group of people was the Imperial Army who had rushed over from the courier station. Speaking of which, along the way, they had met a lot of guards patrolling the street. After all, it was curfew now, and ordinary people were not allowed to walk in the city. However, now that the guards of Taiyuan City knew that the Imperial Army and Li Tai were in the city, they did not encounter much obstruction after Dugu Feiying revealed his identity. There was even a warm-hearted guard who volunteered to lead the way for Dugu Feiying. It was precisely because of this guard that they could take a shortcut that they could reach Baosheng Fang so quickly. Chapter 1924. So it's General Feiying. Light returned to the room and Wang Chungu finally had a chance to see the situation in the room clearly. Seeing that Wang Li was killed by his blade and the old lady's life was not in danger, he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. However, after seeing the group of people who barged in, Wang Qingwu's heart suddenly jumped up. This was because the group of people who came in was the people he didn't want to meet the most, the Imperial Army. Wang Qingwu cupped his fists to Dugu Feiying. Taking advantage of this moment, his mind began to whirl as he tried to think of an excuse that would allow him to extricate himself from the other members of the Wang clan and highlight the contributions of the first branch as much as possible. Needless to say, he really did manage to think of something. Tonight, the family head received news from the Wang family's disciples that the assassin you caught this afternoon had appeared in Baoxing Lane. Thus, the family head sent me over to check on the situation. Unexpectedly, when I arrived at Baoxing Lane, I saw a black-clothed man sneaking into this room. I hid on the roof to see what this person was up to. Unexpectedly, this person actually wanted to harm the owner of this room. In a moment of desperation, I descended from the roof and killed this person with one slash of my blade. Then you all came. Hearing this, Dugu Feiying frowned. Although Wang Qingwu's words were logical, he still felt that something wasn't right. Because if what Wang Qingwu said was true, then wasn't this matter too much of a coincidence? However, the most important thing now was to confirm if the old lady of the assassin they caught was here and was safe. As for the rest, it wouldn't be too late to talk about it later. Dugu Feiying expressionlessly nodded at Wang Qingwu and then walked to the side of the bed. Looking at the trembling old lady who was curled up in the corner, he squatted down slightly and asked, "Old lady, do you recognize this person?" As he spoke, Dugu Feiying took out a portrait and unfolded it in front of the old lady. It was the portrait of Star Wolf that was plastered all over the city today. That old lady was only an ordinary citizen. When had she ever seen such a scene? She had long been scared silly by the bloody scene in the room. She didn't seem to be able to hear Dugu Feiying's words. Seeing this, Dugu Feiying could only repeat his words a few more times and move the portrait closer to the old woman. Finally, the old woman caught a glimpse of the person in the portrait. Her lifeless eyes suddenly lit up. A moment later, she seemed to have recovered. She stood up excitedly and reached out to grab the portrait in Dugu Feiying's hands. She said excitedly, "Brother Dugu, Qing-er, this is my Qing-er. Why do you have his portrait? Where is my Qing-er now?" Cough, cough, cough. However, because she spoke too quickly, she couldn't help but cough again. Dugu Feiying's heart calmed down a lot when he saw that the old woman really knew the assassin. However, he also remembered that if this old woman was really the assassin's mother, then she should have tuberculosis. This disease was contagious, so Dugu Feiying took a step back and tried to keep a certain distance from the old woman. Then he smiled and said to the old woman as calmly as possible, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Auntie, do you mean that the person in the portrait is your son?" The old lady was stunned, then nodded and said, "Yes. This is my Qing-er. Quickly tell me, where is my Qing-er now?" Dugu Feiying was finally relieved after hearing the confirmation from the old woman. He smiled warmly and replied, "Auntie, your son is with us right now. For your safety, I need to bring you back. This way, you can also see your son while you're at it. What do you think?" Hearing this, the old lady nodded and said, "Good, good, good. As long as I can see my Qing-er, I can go anywhere." Dugu Feiying turned to look at the two servant girls at the door and said, "The two of you are serving this old lady, right? In a while, follow me and leave together. You can also take care of the old lady on the way." The two servant girls looked timidly at Dugu Feiying, who was dressed in martial attire. After hesitating for a moment, they nodded and said, "Yes, General." Dugu Feiying nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, he turned his gaze to the masked man on the bed. He frowned slightly and went forward to remove the black mask from the man's face. Then, he asked in confusion, "Who is this man? Why does he want to kill you?" This question was naturally asked to the old lady. The old lady was still in a state of panic. Hearing Dugu Feiying's question, she was stunned for a moment. In just a short while, Wang Qingwu, who was standing at the side, walked over with large strides and said with a face of surprise, "It's actually him?" Dugu Feiying's eyes flashed as he turned his head and asked, "Who is it? Could it be that Commander Wang knows this person?" Wang Qingwu nodded with an ugly face. "I know. Of course I know. When we were fighting in the dark, I felt that the other party's martial arts were somewhat familiar, but I didn't expect it to be him." To be honest, this person is the second commander of our Wang family guards, Wang Li. He has always taken orders from our second elder. Now that he has appeared here and wants to kill this old lady, I think our second elder can't be separated from this matter. This is a serious matter. I have to go back and inform the family head as soon as possible. I will take my leave first. Wang Qingwu's idea was very simple. He couldn't let Dugu Feiying know that he knew Wang Li's identity in advance and followed the latter to the Baoxing lane. Otherwise, the two of them would be suspected of having a common enemy. Only by pretending that they met by chance and didn't know Wang Li's identity in advance could he completely remove the Wang family from this matter and show the Wang family's crucial contribution in protecting the witness to the greatest extent. The only loophole in this excuse was that the old lady had heard his conversation with Wang Li. However, the meaning of their conversation was mostly ambiguous. Under the situation where the old lady didn't know the cause and effect of the entire matter, based on those few words, she might not know the pros and cons of this matter. Moreover, it was him who had saved the old lady from Wang Li's hands. No matter what, he was the old lady's savior. He believed that the old lady wouldn't deliberately mention these details to Dugu Feiying. In addition, even if the old woman told Dugu Feiying about the conversation between him and Wang Li, it would not be a big deal. After all, he had killed Wang Li and saved the old woman. This was an irrefutable fact. Just based on this point, it was impossible for him and the power behind him to be on the same side as Wang Li. Wang Li's life was the Wang family's pledge of allegiance to Li heir and the imperial court. It's the second commander of the Wang family's guards. Hearing this, Dugu Feiying couldn't help but be shocked. He looked at Wang Qingwu with an inexplicable expression in his eyes. Then, he nodded at Wang Qingwu and said, "Since this has happened, we should indeed inform the Wang family head. Commander Wang, please return quickly." Wang Qingwu clasped his fists at everyone and said, "Then I shall take my leave." After saying that, he seemed to inadvertently glance at the old lady. Seeing that the latter's face was still in shock, he felt slightly relieved and turned to leave. As for Wang Li's corpse, he definitely couldn't bring it back. Of course, he didn't want to bring it back either. Go. Return to the post house immediately. After Wang Qingwu left, Dugu Feiying waved his hand and ordered, "Clatter, clatter, clatter." However, as soon as his voice fell, a rumbling sound of horse hooves could be heard from outside the courtyard. Wang Qingwu's complexion changed slightly. He subconsciously thought that it was the hidden forces of Sourcepeak City, but after thinking about it for a moment, he realized that the entire city was under martial law now. Even if those people had the guts, they wouldn't dare to make such a big move unless they were tired of living. Thus, he ordered an imperial guard beside him. "Go. See what's going on outside." "Yes, General." The imperial guard received the order and left. Dugu Feiying, Han Li, and the other imperial guards in the room guarded the old lady behind them with vigilant expressions. After a while, the imperial guard ran back and clasped his fists at Dugu Feiying. "General, it's the Bing Province barracks troop. There are about 400 of them, and they're right in front of the courtyard." "Oh? Someone from the Bing Province barracks? Go, let's go out and take a look." Dugu Feiying's eyes flashed. He turned to the two maidservants and the old lady and said, "Help Auntie out and follow me to the Taiyuan post house." "Yes, General." The two maidservants naturally didn't dare to disobey Dugu Feiying's orders. They bowed and accepted the order. "Barracks Fong." Dugu Feiying cupped his fists and greeted Fong Gongting as he led the group out of the courtyard. Fong Gongting had seen Dugu Feiying before. At this moment, he quickly got off his horse and returned the salute. He said, "General Feiying? You guys are? Oh, I understand. You must have heard the news that the assassin's mother lives here. That's why you came, right?" Dugu Feiying nodded. "Yes. From what Barracks Fong said, you guys must have heard the news as well. I wonder how Barracks Fong got the news?" Tonight's events were simply too coincidental. Wang Chengwu suddenly appeared here, and even Fang Gongting suddenly appeared here with his troops. Du Guifeng was really curious about where Fang Gongting got the news. Fang Gongting smiled and said, "Haha." After this, Fang returned to the camp. I gathered all the soldiers who searched the city during the day and asked if any of them had encountered an old woman with tuberculosis during the day. I didn't expect that there really were people who had encountered her. In order to avoid any problems, this Fang immediately brought people here to investigate. At this point, Fang Gongting also got the old lady supported by the two maidservants behind Du Guifeng. He asked, "General Feiying, this should be the assassin's mother, right? I didn't expect that even though we rushed over, we were still one step behind you." Du Guifeng smiled. "Barracks Fang must be joking. You and I are both protecting the safety of His Highness. But since you brought people here, come with me and escort this old lady back to the post house." Of course. Fang Gongting didn't even think about it and agreed. "Soldiers, listen to my order. Follow me back to the post house." Chapter 1925. Gao Yong, Zhang Chang, why are you here? On the street outside Jingren Square in Taiyuan City, Wang Chengwu, who was hurrying back to the Wang clan residence, happened to run into a group of people heading south of the city. Wang Chengwu couldn't help but be startled when he saw the leader of the group, and he hurried forward to greet him. When the two men saw Wang Chengwu, they quickly dismounted from their horses and bowed respectfully. "Senior Commander, we are following the Patriarch's orders and following the secret signal you left on the road. We are heading to meet you." "No need. The matter has been resolved. Come back with me." Hearing this, Wang Chengwu came to a realization and waved his hand. "Resolved?" The two were startled, and then one of them asked tentatively, "Then what about the second commander?" "Dead." Wang Chengwu replied indifferently and then impatiently urged, "There's been a change in the situation. Come back with me to report to the Patriarch." "Yes." Gao Yong and Zhang Chang cupped their fists and accepted the order, and then the group immediately changed from the rear to the front, heading toward the Wang clan residence in the northeast. Why are they going back? In the darkness, two armored soldiers were hiding in a corner, muttering to each other as they watched the Wang clan guard turn back. Just now I seem to have heard them call out something about Grand Commander. Could that person from the southern part of the city be Wang Chengwu of the Wang clan? What is he doing in the southern part of the city so late at night? You're asking me? Who should I ask? The question now is, should we continue to follow them? Follow my ass. Can't you see that they're going back to the Wang clan residence? Let's go back and report to General Dugu. That's right. Then let's go back. The two stood up and headed toward the courier station in the north. Yes, these two were the two Imperial Army soldiers that Dugu Xian had sent to follow the Wang clan shadow guard. In the dilapidated house of Bao Xing Lane, there was a soul-stirring assassination and rescue. After Dugu Feiying and his men left, everything returned to normal. However, two black-clothed men landed in the courtyard. They looked at each other, then entered the main house and began to search for something seriously. Their gazes swept over the furniture that had been knocked over, the tiles that had fallen from the roof, and finally landed on the bloodstain at the head of the bed and the deep knife mark on the wooden head of the bed. It's a saber mark. The other party pierced through a person, and the tip of the saber stuck into the headboard. Killed in one strike. His strength is above mine. One of the thinner men in black looked at the saber mark at the head of the bed and muttered to himself. It's just a saber seal, but it's enough to make you feel inferior. You're a Grandmaster realm expert. The other man in black, who was taller, couldn't help but snort. These two people were precisely the two most capable generals under Zhao Dian, Xian Yi and Tian Ying. Of course, the two of them were secretly competing with each other. Xian Yi looked at Sky Eagle as if he was looking at an idiot. Then, he turned his head to look at the long and shallow saber mark on the wall and said indifferently, controlling a saber with chi and being able to condense it into a solid saber aura. This person is definitely a saber master, and his realm is definitely above the Grandmaster realm. In Sourcepeak City, I have only met one person like this. Tianying couldn't help but become serious. He stepped forward and looked at the long and narrow saber mark on the wall. It was as Xianyi had said. It wasn't a physical saber, but saber chi, which could also be called a saber aura. He turned to Xianyi and asked, "Who is it?" Xianyi turned and said, "Wang Chungu, the commander of the Wang clan shadow guards. I fought with him during the assassination of Dugu Xian in the south of the city." Tianying was silent. Although he had always been at odds with Xianyi, he still believed in Xianyi's personal strength. If even Xianyi couldn't defeat someone, then there was no need to talk about him. "There's a smell of medicine in this room. When we came, we saw the woman in the room being taken away by an army. Judging from their armor, there were imperial guards and soldiers from the Bing province barracks. This means that the woman in the room is very important to them. Go back and report to the guard master. I'll follow them and act according to the situation." Xianyi saw that there were no more valuable clues in the room, so he walked out with his hands behind his back. When he reached the door, he turned to Tianying behind him and said, based on, Sky Eagle subconsciously wanted to say, "Why do you let me run errands while you do the work that might lead to meritorious service?" However, he swallowed his words. Putting aside the fact that there was a saber wielder in the Grandmaster realm who was more powerful than Xianyi, even the well-trained Imperial Guards and the Bing Province barracks soldiers were not people that he could deal with. When they first arrived here, Wang Chungu had just left. Then, not long after, Fang Gongting arrived with 400 soldiers. Therefore, the two of them didn't have the chance to get close to the room. They could only hide in the dark and watch as Dugu Feiying, Fang Gongting, and the rest left with an old woman, 2 maids, and a bloody corpse. "Okay." Tianying nodded after hesitating for a moment. However, Xianyi was already nowhere to be seen. A hint of anger flashed across Tianying's eyes. He cursed, F***ck. This guy won't steal the limelight again, will he? Although he cursed, he couldn't change the fact that he was weaker than Xianyi. As the saying went, one should do as much as one could. Right now, he had to obediently go back and report to Zhao Dian. Chapter 1926. Escape? Now that Taiyuan City is under martial law, where can we escape to? In the room, Wang Kuei frowned and said helplessly, "If they could live, who would want to die?" But the problem now was that the 4 city gates of Taiyuan City were all closed. Even if they wanted to escape, they couldn't. Wang Xinyuan said firmly, "Grandfather, we don't have to escape from the city. Aren't Guardian Zhao and the others trapped in the city now? But they can live peacefully under the search of the soldiers. As long as we take people to Guardian Zhao now, we will have a chance of survival." This guy wanted to go all the way to the dark side. But didn't you say before that Zhao Dian was of low birth and unreliable? Even if we rely on him, we can only live under his roof and look at his face? Wang Kuei was a little moved, but he remembered their previous judgment of Zhao Dian and shook his head. They came from the Wang family of Taiyuan and were members of a 1,000-year-old family. Zhao Dian was just a local official. Even if they relied on the Turks, how could they be willing to be under Zhao Dian, a Han? So they had been secretly waiting for a high-level Turk official, such as the Turk state preceptor, to come to Taiyuan City. Then they would fully surrender. Wang Xinyuan said helplessly, "Grandfather, today is different from the past. Since we have been exposed, our lives are in danger at any time. The most important thing now is to protect our lives. As long as we are still alive and have people in our hands, we will definitely be able to make a comeback. Relying on Guardian Zhao is just a temporary expedient." Sigh. "All right then, Let's leave the mansion and find Guardian Zhao. Wang Kuei was stunned for a moment, then sighed and said. Wang Xinyuan hurriedly said, Grandfather, we can't go to Guardian Lord Zhao empty-handed. In my opinion, we should quickly pack up some gold, silver, and valuables, and then take the assassins that you have been cultivating over the years, as well as some of the secret guards that are loyal to you. Only in this way will Guardian Lord Zhao be willing to accept us. As the saying went, one would not get up early if there were no benefits. From a certain perspective, Wang Xinyuan and Zhao Dian were the same kind of people who crazily sought survival in the face of adversity. Wang Xinyuan understood that if he and Wang Kuei went to Zhao Dian empty-handed, not only would Zhao Dian not accept their surrender, he might even sell them out to Wang Yu or the Imperial Army, because they had no value to Zhao Dian. You're right. There's no time to lose. I'll gather my men, pack up my valuables, and prepare to leave. However, most of the assassins this old man has trained are not in the mansion. After we escape, we will look for them. After being reminded by Wang Xinyuan, Wang Kuei came to his senses and quickly said. Then, he shouted outside the door, Qizhe, immediately gather your trustworthy brothers and gather in this courtyard in half an hour. Someone outside the door immediately answered, Yes. Your subordinate obeys. In the room, Wang Kuei knew that there was not much time left, so he did not ask Wang Xinyuan to avoid him. He went directly to the table next to the bed in front of Wang Xinyuan and gently twisted the vase on it. With a ka-ka sound, the wall twisted and turned, and a secret compartment about 1 square meter in size appeared. Wang Xinyuan, who was standing behind Wang Kuei, could not help but flash his eyes. A trace of surprise and inexplicable emotion appeared on his face. Obviously, he did not expect Wang Kuei to be so secretive. A moment later, seeing Wang Yu take out a large crimson box from the secret compartment, Wang Xinyuan hurriedly went forward to help, but Wang Kuei signaled him with his eyes not to interfere. Wang Kuei put the wooden box on the table and then said to Wang Xinyuan, Here are some gold, silver, jewelry, land deeds, store deeds, and servants' contracts that I have saved over the years. They should be worth about 40 to 50,000 strings of coins. There are some other things, but I don't think there's enough time to pack them up. Take these and leave first. Chapter 1927. Iron Egg. Why haven't General Flying Eagle and the others returned yet? Did something happen at Baoxing Square? In Taiyuan Courier Station, Li Tai and Iron Egg were sitting in a side hall, anxiously waiting for news from Baoxing Square. Seeing that it was almost 9 o'clock, Li Tai could not help but ask. Iron Egg frowned. In truth, he had wanted to go with Dugu Feiying and Han Lijing to Baoxing Square, but his father had insisted that he stay behind to protect Li Tai. Before this, Han Lijing had already heard about how Iron Egg had disguised himself as Li Tai to attract the attention of some unknown faction in the city. In Han Lijing's view, given Iron Egg's personal friendship with Li Tai, as well as his own martial arts, he was the best candidate to protect Li Tai. General Flying Eagle is personally taking action, and my father is also there, so there shouldn't be any problems. Let's just wait patiently. Iron Egg was also worried, but he still spoke words of comfort. I hope so. Li Tai sighed. At this moment, a flurry of footsteps came from the gate of the courier station. The two looked at each other and hurriedly stood up to welcome the visitor. General Dugu is back. It turned out that Dugu Xian was riding a carriage back with a group of people from the Wang family. With the help of the Imperial Army, Dugu Xian got off the carriage and bowed to Li Tai. He asked, Your Highness, this general heard that you have already found out the whereabouts of that assassin's family, and that Flying Eagle has already led people there. Has he returned yet? On the way back, an Imperial Army soldier had reported to Dugu Xian. Thus, Dugu Xian learned that Starwolf had spoken under Li Tai's interrogation, and that Star Wolf had an old mother who lived in Baosheng Square in the southern part of the city. Li Tai shook his head. Not yet. But General Flying Eagle and the others have been gone for almost an hour. If things go well, they should be back soon. Dugu Xian nodded solemnly, then said meaningfully, That's right. The Wang family is also making strange movements. I have left 2 people to monitor them. Tonight, Sourcepeak City should be very lively. Who knows, we might be able to uncover Zhao Dian and the others who are hiding in the dark. Oh? Are there any movements from the Wang family? Li Tai's eyes lit up and he quickly asked, What is it? Could it be that this prince's previous guess was true? That there really is someone in the Wang family colluding with Zhao Dian? In the evening, when Han Lijing brought the intercepted secret letter to the post house, Li Tai learned of the contents of the letter and guessed that there was someone in the Wang clan who was colluding with Zhao Dian, and this person was very likely the second elder of the Wang clan, Wang Kuei. Dugu Xian shook his head and said, It's still unclear. This general only heard that the Wang family head had sent someone to follow a guard of the Wang family's second branch. This general had Zhao Eru and Shen Quan stay behind to keep an eye on them. When the 2 of them return, the truth will be revealed. So that's the case. Li Tai nodded thoughtfully, and then he said in a deep voice, Although there is no clear evidence, this Wang family's second branch is definitely a major suspect. General Dugu, you have to send more people to keep an eye on them. This general understands. Dugu Xian cupped his fists in acknowledgement. While the 2 of them were talking, the sound of galloping horses suddenly came from outside the inn. From the sound of the galloping horses, there were at least a few hundred people coming, and all of them were cavalry. Li Tai said excitedly, It must be General Fei Ying. I wonder if he brought back the assassin's old mother. This prince will go take a look. Your Highness, please wait. Dugu Xian's expression flickered. They had only brought 1,000 Imperial Guardsmen with them from Chang'an, and they had to send a portion of their forces to Longshan and guard the post house. It was impossible for Dugu Feiying to bring a few hundred people to Baosheng Square tonight. And from the deafening sound of hooves coming from the street outside the post house, it was clear that several hundred cavalry had arrived. Although Taiyuan City was still under the control of the government, Dugu Xian still didn't dare to let Li Tai take the risk. He pulled back Li Tai, who was about to run out, and then shouted to the Imperial Guardsmen behind him, You lot, follow this general out to take a look. Yes, sir. The soldiers obeyed the order and followed Dugu Xian to the entrance of the courier station. They saw a long fire dragon charging towards them from the street. Just as Dugu Xian had predicted, there were about 400 to 500 soldiers in this group, and the cavalry at the front of the group was only about 300 feet away from Dugu Xian's group. As the sky was too dark and the other party was rather far away, Dugu Xian couldn't see who the commander was. On guard! Dugu Xian shouted in a low voice. At the same time, he gripped the sword at his waist. Although he hadn't recovered from his injuries and couldn't fight yet, if the other party really wasn't Dugu Feiying's men and were coming for Li Tai, he would have to draw his sword and fight with his life on the line. Yes, sir. The Imperial Guardsmen behind Dugu Xian all drew their long sabers and looked at the fire dragon charging toward the post house warily. Thump, thump, thump. The chaotic sound of hooves came closer and closer, and Dugu Xian and the others were extremely nervous. If the other party was really coming for Li Tai, it would be very difficult for them to win as infantry. It's Feiying. When the fire dragon was about 100 feet away from the gate of the post house, Dugu Xian finally saw the face of the commander. He sighed softly and turned to the Imperial Guardsmen behind him, as if relieved of a heavy burden. Don't be on guard. Everyone, return to your positions. Yes, sir. The Imperial Guardsmen replied. They were actually relieved as well. In the courtyard, Li Tai and Iron Egg saw this and hurried out to welcome them. Dugu Xian didn't stop them this time. Although he still didn't know why Dugu Feiying had so many soldiers behind him, it was fine as long as he knew that Dugu Feiying was in that group. He had always believed in his brother without a doubt. Whoosh! A moment later, the fire dragon had already arrived in front of the inn. Dugu Feiying, Han Lijing, Fang Gongting, and the others all dismounted and came to Li Tai. They bowed and cupped their fists. "Your Highness," Li Tai quickly said, "no need for formalities." Is Adjutant Fang here too?" It was only then that he noticed Fang Gongting and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. "Your Highness, after I returned from the provincial governor's residence, I summoned all the soldiers who searched the city during the day." Fang Gongting cupped his fists and briefly told Li Tai what he had told Dugu Feiying earlier. Li Tai was enlightened. He then looked at Dugu Feiying and hurriedly asked, "General Feiying, how was it? Did you find the assassin's mother in Baosheng Lane?" Earlier in the prison cell, although Star Wolf had promised Li Tai that he would be willing to tell him the mastermind, there was a precondition. He had to bring his mother over and invite Sun Simiao and other famous doctors to treat her. Therefore, Li Tai still had high hopes for the results of Dugu Feiying and the others' trip. Dugu Feiying didn't disappoint Li Tai. He smiled and said, "Your Highness, fortunately, I didn't disappoint you." Then, he turned and ordered, "Bring the ant here." Under the escort of 2 soldiers, the 2 young maidservants helped the old woman out of the crowd. Dugu Feiying suddenly thought of something and quickly whispered something in Li Tai's ear. Then, he pulled Li Tai back a few steps. Obviously, Dugu Feiying was worried that the old woman's tuberculosis would be transmitted to Li Tai. Li Tai wasn't angry. Instead, he was in a good mood. Good. Good. Bring this aunt to see her son and settle her in the post-house." "Yes, Your Highness." Dugu Feiying quickly waved his hand and signaled the 2 soldiers to bring the old woman away. Chapter 1928. In a side hall of the relay station, Dugu Feiying recounted the scene that he had encountered at the Star Wolf family, as well as Wang Qingwu's explanation. After everyone heard this, they all revealed looks of contemplation. A few moments later, Li Tai's eyes focused as he said, "Based on the information General Dugu brought back from the Wang clan and what General Feiying said just now, this king believes that there's an 80 to 90% chance that the Wang clan's second elder is colluding with Zhao Dian. As long as we can capture him, I'm confident that we can find Zhao Dian's hiding place." Dugu Xian nodded in agreement. "Your Highness's words are reasonable. Although there is no conclusive evidence, Sourcepeak City's situation is special and perilous. This general believes that we should first capture the Wang clan's second elder and interrogate him. As the saying went, special cases had to be dealt with in a special way. In normal times, if the second elder of the Wang clan had done something that violated the laws of the Great Tang, the authorities would not have dared to arrest him without solid evidence. But things were different now. Zhao Dian and the other Turkic spies in Sourcepeak City were threatening the safety of the city, and Wang Kuei, the second elder of the Wang clan, was colluding with Zhao Dian. Even if there was no evidence, they still needed to arrest him. It was better to kill the wrong person than to leave him alive. After all, Li Tai and the teachers and students of Yanhuang College were all in Sourcepeak City. If something happened to them, the imperial court would suffer a massive loss. Li Tai's face turned grim as he stood up and sternly said, "Okay. Since that's the case, General Feiying, this king orders you to immediately take men to the Wang clan and arrest the second elder. Afterward, you will be sent to the provincial governor's residence. We will work with Governor Wang to interrogate him through the night. As for the Wang clan head, if he tries to stop us, say that he's acting on this king's orders. When the matter is over, have him come to find this king, and this king will give him an explanation." As the person with the highest status in the group, Li Tai knew that it was time for him to make a decision. This order had to be given by him. After all, the other party was the second elder of the Wang family of Taiyuan. Although he had no official position in the court, behind him stood a 1,000-year-old family. If Wang Kuei really colluded with the Turks, it would be fine. But if Wang Kuei was proved innocent, the one who gave the order to arrest him would have to bear the wrath of the Wang family. Therefore, Li Tai did not make things difficult for Dugu Xian and Dugu Feiying, and directly gave the order. Dugu Feiying stood up and cupped his fists. Understood. With that, he cupped his fists at Han Lijing and Dugu Xian before turning to leave. At that moment, 2 imperial guards rushed in and saluted Dugu Xian and Li Tai. One of them said, "General, Your Highness, bad news. The Wang clan's second elder ran away." These 2 were none other than Zhao Eru and Xin Quan, whom Dugu Xian had left behind to monitor the Wang family's movements. Dugu Xian's expression changed. He ran? Why did he run away all of a sudden? What's going on? Dugu Feiying, who was about to bring men to capture Wang Kuei, turned back when he heard Zhao Eru's words. Zhao Eru panted. "This subordinate doesn't know either. We followed the Wang clan's guards all the way to the south of the city, but they met Wang Chunwu halfway and turned back. The 2 of us also turned back. Not long after, we heard a commotion coming from the Wang clan's ancestral mansion. Many guards were sent out by the Wang clan's patriarch. This subordinate asked around and found out that the Wang clan's second elder, Wang Kuei, had led a group of trusted aides to kill the Wang clan's guards and escaped before we returned to the Wang clan. Preposterous. This Wang Kuei must have a guilty conscience, worried that Wang Chunwu would bring back evidence against him, so he escaped prematurely. Dugu Xian frowned, a little annoyed. Speaking of which, they were about to find Zhao Dian's hiding place, but one of the key criminals had escaped prematurely. No matter who it was, they would be depressed. After Li Tai finished listening to Zhao Eru's narration, he seemed to be deep in thought. At this moment, he opened his mouth and said, "It seems that the patriarch of the Wang clan and the second elder of the Wang clan are not on the same side. Otherwise, Wang Chunwu would not have stopped and killed Wang Li at the Triumph House, and Wang Yu would not have sent people to look for Wang Kuei with great fanfare." Dugu Xian nodded. The Wang clan's patriarch can't be on the same side as Wang Kuei. This subordinate believes that he should be more anxious to find Wang Yu than we are. Dugu Xian had indeed suspected Wang Yu before, but after a series of events, he had long since eliminated Wang Yu as a suspect. Li Tai thought for a moment, and then a thought came to his mind. He muttered, "Wang Kuei's escape has confirmed the crime of colluding with Turkic spies. We can't rely on the Wang clan's power to find him. First, immediately send men to the provincial governor's residence to inform Provincial Governor Wang and the Bing province barracks to search the entire city for Wang Kuei. Second, this prince wants to interrogate that assassin. All signs indicate that this assassin is very likely one of Wang Kuei's men. He should know better than us where Wang Kuei went after escaping from the Wang clan." Chapter 1929. It's already dark and it's not safe outside. Your Highness, why don't you stay in the posthouse and allow me to lead the men there? In the prison of the posthouse, Dugu Xian immediately felt that something was amiss when he saw the eagerness on Li Tai's face. Right now, it was completely dark outside. Not to mention the fact that Zhao Dian's men were still lurking in the city. Even if Zhao Dian wasn't around, Dugu Xian wouldn't have dared to let Li Tai personally lead his men to the manor that Star Wolf had mentioned. After all, that manor was filled with Wang Kuei's assassins and death warriors. If one of them was hiding in the shadows and suddenly attacked Li Tai, then the matter would be grave. Dugu Xian definitely couldn't take this risk. He would rather take the risk himself than let Li Tai take the risk. As expected, a hint of disappointment flashed across Li Tai's face when he heard Dugu Xian's words. The little fatty was used to a life of luxury and ease, so it was inevitable that he would like to take risks and seek excitement. However, it was mainly because he believed that it was impossible for anything to happen to him under the protection of the Imperial Army. Thus, he wanted to make a trip to the manor personally. Ahem. When did this prince say that he wanted to personally go? Li Tai coughed dryly and forced himself to say this. He then said seriously, however, General Dugu, you are still injured, so it's even more unsuitable for you to go. In this prince's opinion, it's better to let someone else go. He hadn't forgotten Gong Sun Liang's previous instructions. Although most of the poison in Dugu Xian's body had been removed, he still couldn't fight for 7 days. Han Lijing stepped forward and cupped his fists to Dugu Xian and Li Tai. If your highness and General Dugu trust this old man is willing to lead men to the manor. Dugu Xian and Li Tai looked at each other, and Dugu Xian finally said, this junior naturally trusts old Master Han's character. Fei Ying has already led men to the provincial governor's mansion and the Bing province barracks, and I'm injured. This junior is naturally grateful that old Master Han is willing to make this trip on my behalf. At his peak, Han Lijing's strength should be around the peak of Qi transformation. Although he was injured on the battlefield and was now old, he could still hold up against those below the Grandmaster realm. Of course, the most important thing was that Dugu Fei Ying wasn't at the post house, and Dugu Xian had yet to recover from his injuries. The Imperial Army's top fighting strength was lacking, so in this situation, Han Lijing was indeed the most suitable person for this trip. Han Lijing cupped his fists and said, then there's no time to lose. General Dugu, please lead a troop of soldiers and horses to follow this old man to that mysterious manor. Dugu Xian turned to Xing Lang and asked, Wang Kuei's manor, how many assassins and loyalists are there? Dugu Xian's to decide how many men to send men to the manor, but Dugu Xen, Dugu Duguzes to the manor. Dugu Wang to decide how many men to send men send there, the send men's to send the men to send men to send. Wang Dugu Duguzes Dugu Dudugahan decided how many men to send a men to go Wang's men's Wang's theirs. Rs t's haft Wang t's Li Tai t. Chi t's 120 people? Around the body refining realm to the Qi transformation realm. Hearing this, Dugu Xian immediately felt troubled. If what Xing Lang said was true, then this team of assassins trained by Wang Kuei was completely comparable to an imperial army of the same scale. Of course, this was only on the surface. In a fight, a higher realm didn't guarantee victory. It also depended on the coordination of the battle formation. Zhao Eru. After thinking for a moment, Dugu Xian called out, this general is here. Zhao Eru, who had run back to the post house to report the news, ran in from outside the cell and bowed. I order you to immediately count 200 men and follow Master Han to a manor near Dragon Mountain. Dugu Xian ordered in a deep voice. Xing Lang's words were very vague. He only said that most of the 120 assassins were between the body refining realm and the Qi transformation realm, but he didn't say how many of them were in the Qi transformation realm. If more than 50% of the assassins were in the Qi transformation realm, then the 200 Imperial Army soldiers he sent would have a hard time winning. However, there was nothing he could do about it. 200 men was the most Dugu Xian could send out. After sending out these 200 men, there would only be around 200 Imperial Army soldiers left at the relay station. This general obeys. Zhao Eru cupped his fists and loudly acknowledged the order. He then turned around and went out to count the men. Who is it? Han Lijing suddenly looked up at the roof and shouted. Then, he pulled out the Mo saber at his waist and threw it with all his might. The saber broke through the roof with a crash, and tiles flew everywhere. A large hole appeared in the roof of the cell. But at the same time, a man in black jumped off the roof and retreated, barely dodging Han Lijing's saber. Then, the man in black realized that he had been exposed. He hurriedly stepped off the roof and used the momentum to fly away. Han Lijing hadn't brought this saber from Yifeng County. Dugu Feiying had someone prepare it for him before he went to Baosheng Lane with Dugu Feiying. He hadn't had time to return it after he came back. After missing, Han Lijing didn't have time to say anything else. He rushed out of the cell and chased after the man in black. Men! Follow old Master Han in pursuit. Dugu Xian's face was dark. They had been in the cell for so long, but they hadn't noticed that someone was eavesdropping on them from the roof. Strictly speaking, this was his dereliction of duty as the commander of the Imperial Army. But in truth, this wasn't his fault. He had yet to recover from his injuries, and he didn't even have 10% of his strength left. His perception of danger was naturally not as good as before. If he hadn't been injured, this sort of thing would never have happened. The courier station was instantly filled with noise and people. An Imperial Army squad mounted their horses and galloped in the direction that Han Lijing had left. In the cell, Li Tai looked at the large hole in the roof with a thoughtful expression. Although Iron Egg was worried about his father's safety, protecting Li Tai was undoubtedly more important, so he didn't pursue. Dugu Xian was injured, so he didn't pursue either. Like Iron Egg, he stood guard by Li Tai's side. After about 5 minutes, Han Lijing finally returned. Dugu Xian hurriedly asked, "Old Master Han, how was it?" Han Lijing's forehead was covered in sweat. He shook his head and said with some shame, "That black-clothed man's martial arts were very high, and his lightness skill was also excellent. I followed him for a while, but I lost him. Although he was at the peak of Qi transforming stage, he was good at fighting in battle, not lightness skill. Moreover, the black-clothed man's strength seemed to be above his. It was almost impossible to catch up." Dugu Xian was a little disappointed, but he still comforted him. That black-clothed man was able to sneak into the courier station and hide on the roof without us noticing. His strength must be extraordinary. It's understandable that old Master Han couldn't catch up. Li Tai then said, "I guess that black-clothed man is very likely a spy under Zhao Dian. If he heard our conversation just now, Zhao Dian will definitely send someone to the Dragon Mountain Manor to report to Wang Kuei. Our men must set off immediately and reach the Dragon Mountain Manor before Zhao Dian's men. It's best if we can intercept Wang Kuei halfway." "Your Highness's words are reasonable. I'll take my men to the Dragon Mountain now." Han Lijing nodded and cupped his fist. Just then, Zhao Error happened to walk in and cupped his fists to Dugu Xian. "General, the men have been counted. We can set off at any time." Dugu Xian's face was solemn as he said in a deep voice, "Good. Zhao Eru, take your men with old Master Han and Su Yunqing and set off immediately." "Yes." Zhao Eru cupped his fists and accepted the order. 2 Imperial guards came in and untied Star Wolf from the gallows, then brought him out of the prison cell. A moment later, a group of 200 cavalrymen, each holding a torch, rushed out of the courier station and headed south. The Imperial Guards and the Bing Province barracks went to such great lengths just for a sick old woman? Within the heavenly room of the Tongfu Inn, Sky Eagle spoke in detail of what he saw and heard in the house in Triumph House. Zhao Dian's brows knit together tightly when he finished listening, and he couldn't help but mutter to himself. By the time Sky Eagle's group arrived at Triumph House, Wang Li had already been killed by Wang Qingwu, and Dugu Feiying's men had already brought Star Wolf's mother out. Thus, he didn't know much. He could only tell Zhao Dian what they had seen and some of Xian Ye's deductions. It was normal that Zhao Dian couldn't figure out the crux of the matter. "You said that a great battle took place in that house, and Sky Eagle deduced that one of the combatants was the Grand Commander of the Wang clan's Shadow Guards, Wang Qingwu?" Zhao Dian's mind spun rapidly. He closed his eyes and repeated what Tianing had just said a few times in his mind. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and asked Tianing with a deep voice, "Tianing?" Sky Eagle cupped his fists and said, Xian Yi deduced based on the saber slashes at the scene. He said that he fought with Wang Chungu in the morning. The only person in Sourcepeak City with such strength could only be Wang Chungu. Wang Chungu. The Wang clan. The Wang clan is also involved. It seems that this old lady's identity is definitely not ordinary. Zhao Dian nodded and seemed to be lost in thought. After a while, he came back to his senses and said to Sky Eagle, "All right. I know everything. Wait for Xian Yi to come back and see what news he can bring back." Sky Eagle brought back too little useful information. He could only deduce that the old lady's identity was special and that she was related to the Wang clan and the Imperial Army. However, it was difficult to deduce why the Wang clan was involved in this matter with just this little information. It would depend on whether Xian Yi could find out more useful information in the process of following Dugu Feiying and the rest. "Yes. Your subordinate will take his leave." Sky Eagle was a little jealous when he heard Zhao Dian's words. In the end, he had really become an errand boy, and all the meritorious work had been done by Xian Yi. However, who asked him to be weaker than the other party? With his strength, it was very likely that he would be discovered if he secretly followed Dugu Feiying and the rest. Chapter 1930. Father, where are we going? Also, why did you give the order to kill the gatekeeper? If Uncle finds out, will he spare us? In the dark night, a group of more than 40 people was being led by 3 men on horseback. They were rushing towards the southwest of Taiyuan City. For the sake of concealment, only a few people at the front of the group were holding torches. The people at the back were following the footsteps of the people in front. At this time, the middle-aged man at the front of the group turned his head and asked the old man beside him, "If we don't kill the gatekeeper, how will we escape? Right now, our only chance of survival is to escape from the Wang family." The old man replied snappily. The old man was Wang Kuei, the one who had killed the gatekeeper and escaped from the Wang family's ancestral home. The 2 people beside him were Wang Hong and Wang Xinyuan. When they had fled from the Wang family, they had fled in such a hurry that Wang Kuei had not explained anything to Wang Hong, so even now, Wang Hong was still in a state of confusion. He didn't even know why his father wanted to bring him away. However, the moment Wang Kuei gave the order to kill the guards at the Wang family's back door, Wang Hong had already realized that they had caused trouble. In the future, it would be very difficult for them to return to the Wang family. Escape? Father, we didn't do anything wrong, so why do we have to escape? Wang Hong asked in confusion after hearing Wang Kuei's words. Wang Kuei paused for a moment, then sighed deeply. "That's right. We didn't do anything wrong. This old man just wants to take control of the Wang family and restore the Wang family to its former glory as a 1,000-year-old clan." Wang Hong felt that the first half of this sentence was quite normal, but the second half, when Wang Hong heard this, he was so frightened that he almost fell off his horse. "What? Father, you want the second branch to take control of the clan? Are you trying to rebel against Uncle and Big Brother? Our second branch hasn't had to worry about food and drink all these years. Why do you want to take control of the clan instead of living a good life?" Wang Hong was a typical scion of an aristocratic family. He only wanted to live a comfortable life with the Wang family as his backing. With the Wang family as his backing, not only would he not have to worry about food and drink, but he would also be able to do whatever he wanted in Sourcepeak City. As for the position of patriarch and authority in the clan, what did that have to do with him? He had never cared about it. Of course, as the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. It was precisely because Wang Kuei knew that his son was unambitious that Wang Kuei did not involve Wang Hong in the matters such as surrendering to the Turks and kidnapping Li Tai, nor did he mention them in front of Wang Hong. It was no wonder that Wang Hong was so confused. Bullshit. Not only are you ignorant and incompetent, you don't even have the slightest bit of ambition. All these years, Our second branch has been suppressed by the first branch. Wang Yu and Wang Renbiao have relied on their family's resources to become provincial governors of provinces. They hold high positions and power. Are you willing to submit to others for the rest of your life? Wang Kuei cursed angrily when he heard Wang Hong's words. He was exasperated that Wang Hong had failed to meet his expectations. Perhaps he was used to being scolded by his father. Wang Hong subconsciously shrank his neck in fear, but he still couldn't help but whisper, "Submit to others? I'm living a good life in the clan. I don't feel like I'm beneath anyone." Wang Kuei was old, so his hearing was naturally not as sharp as a young man's. He did not hear Wang Hong's whispers. As the group continued forward, Wang Hong said, "Then father, in order to take control of the clan, what have you done recently?" "Oh no, what have you done? If we go back now and admit our mistakes, will uncle and big brother forgive us?" Even though the person in front of him was his own son, Wang Kuei still had the urge to beat him to death at this moment. He glared at Wang Hong and said hatefully, "You useless thing, I shouldn't have taken you with me." Chapter 1931. Big brother, second brother really colluded with the Turks? And even tried to kidnap His Highness King of Wei? What is he after? In the main hall of the Wang clan residence, the third elder still found it hard to believe that Wang Kuei would do such a disgraceful thing. The main reason was that he couldn't imagine Wang Kuei's motive, or rather, he couldn't imagine what benefit Wang Kuei would gain from this matter. Third brother, although no one saw second brother colluding with the Turks and kidnapping King Wei, all the evidence points to second brother. Now, second brother has led his men to kill the gatekeeper and escape from the residence, thus confirming his crimes. There's no need to explain this matter. The most important thing is to find second brother as quickly as possible, capture him, and send him to the provincial governor's residence. Otherwise, when His Majesty blames us, the Wang clan might be wiped out. Wang Bing sternly said, his face cold. When he had first learned that Wang Kuei had fled with his men, he had also been stunned, but when he came to his senses, he had been infuriated. After all, Wang Kuei had committed a disgraceful act, and now that he had fled, the rest of the Wang clan had to take the blame. In this situation, Wang Bing, the Situ of the previous dynasty and the previous clan head of the Wang clan, had no choice but to step forward and preside over the situation. Everyone in the hall scowled at these words, especially the third elder, fourth elder, and fifth elder. They had always been close to Wang Kuei, but this did not mean that they were willing to take the blame for Wang Kuei, especially when it was a crime that involved the execution of 9 generations of the clan. Wang Kuei had to be found. This was the common belief in everyone's hearts. Big brother is right. We must find second brother, Wang Ku, as soon as possible. Apart from the ancestral residence, I remember that he seems to have another residence in Chui Su Fang and Ping Ruofang. I wonder if he will go there? The fourth elder spoke up in support of Wang Bing. He had been sitting at home, but the pot had fallen from the sky. In his anger, the old fellow had changed his address of Wang Kuei from second brother to directly calling him by his name. Wang Yu, who was sitting next to the fourth elder, said, "Fourth uncle, I've already sent people to these 2 residences. I'm confident that we'll have news soon." Obviously, Wang Yu had already guessed that Wang Kuei had bought this business before. Otherwise, he would have been the head of the family for nothing. Wang Bing's face darkened as he said, "There are records of the businesses that second brother has purchased outside these years. You don't have to say anything. The shadow guards of the clan have all gone to investigate. Think about it carefully and see if there are any other businesses that second brother secretly bought behind the back of the family." As soon as he said this, third elder and fifth elder, who were about to speak, swallowed the words that were already at the tip of their tongues. The hall fell silent for a moment. A moment later, Princess Tang said, "Father, I heard that when second elder escaped this time, other than taking some guards with him, He only took Wang Xinyuan and Uncle Wang Hong. Uncle's concubines are still in the estate. Since the elders can't think of any valuable clues, why don't we ask Uncle's concubines? After all, they are the closest to Uncle. Maybe they know something that we don't. Little Uncle. In addition to addressing the father's youngest brother, married women generally address their husband's younger brother as Little Uncle. Chapter 1932. Reporting to the general, this general followed your orders to search the fifth house on the east side of Shurenfang when it was dark. There was indeed no one in the house, but this subordinate found many weapons in the garden in the backyard. However, this subordinate does not know if they are the weapons that the government is searching for among the people today. In a residence near Tongfuin, a soldier cupped his fist and reported to Li Junxian. This soldier's name was Yan Gui. During the day, Li Junxian had ordered him to infiltrate the fifth residence on the east side of Xuanren Lane, the place where Kong Chang'an and Zhu Zeqing had been hiding, and search to see if he could find anything new. Li Junxian had given this order on a whim, as he had no idea what the situation in the city was like. He didn't have much hope, but to his surprise, Yan Gui had actually found something. Oh? How many weapons are there? Where are they now? Li Junxian asked, his expression shifting. General, there are 7 swords, 21 scimitars, and some hidden weapons. This subordinate and my brothers have already brought back all the weapons. Yan Gui cupped his fist and replied. 7 swords, 21 scimitars? And some hidden weapons? Li Junxian frowned and muttered. Based on the number of weapons, the enemy doesn't have many people. But since Zhao Dian dared to stir up a storm in the city and plot against all of Taiyuan City, he can't have just this much strength. This meant that the house was most likely the place where a portion of his subordinates once stayed. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows, and there must be many other places like this. This Zhao Dian truly isn't simple. Li Junxian turned to another soldier and asked, Zhao Kong, I had you send a letter to the 100 Cavalry Department to investigate Zhao Dian's identity. Has it been sent? The soldier cupped his fist and replied, General, the letter has been sent. In addition, this morning, you ordered this general to take men to the north of the city to see if there were any carrier pigeons flying out. This general and my men stood guard in the north of the city until nightfall, but we did not see any carrier pigeons flying out. Should we continue to stand guard in the north of the city tomorrow? Near noon, Li Junxian had led 100 cavalry into the city. After learning about the current situation in Taiyuan City from Wang Liaoyuan, he had determined that the faction hiding in the city was probably a Turkic spy. Thus, he had sent Zhao Kong and his men to the north of Taiyuan City to intercept the carrier pigeons. Li Junxian shook his head. There's no need. We were too late. Zhao Dian has already sent the letter. In the evening, he learned from Governor Wang at the provincial governor's manor that the letter that Han Lijing brought to Taiyuan was sent by Zhao Dian. He then knew that his order in the morning was still a step late, because Zhao Dian had sent the letter out early in the morning. When they entered the city, it was already close to noon. The timing was perfect. Yes, Zhao Kong replied. Seeing that Li Junxian had no other orders, he stood back to the side. Zhao Kang's Zhao's names Wang's of the city was Zhao's Wang's Zhao Wang's have S's A's. Lord General. Yan Gui cupped his fist in acknowledgement. After some thought, he asked, Then should this general continue to search the city for other Turkic spies? Li Junxian's brow furrowed in thought for a few moments, and then he shook his head. There's no need. Taiyuan City isn't big, but it's definitely not small either. Searching aimlessly is like searching for a needle in a haystack. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. As long as we can capture Zhao Dian, the leader of the spies, his subordinates will be captured sooner or later. General is wise. This general will send the weapons to the provincial governor's residence. Hearing this, Yen Gui nodded in response, then turned and left. Chapter 1933. Just who are you people? Why do you want to capture this old man? How dare you kidnap people in broad daylight? How dare you do such a thing? How preposterous! Do you have any respect for the law? As Li Junxian and the others approached the woodshed, they heard the bellowing of an outwardly strong but inwardly weak voice. Don't you want money? Release this old man and this old man will take you to get the money. Let me tell you, there are some people in this world that you can't afford to offend. If my second master learns that you've kidnapped this old man, all of you here will die. And you'll die a very ugly death, and it'll be too late to regret it. Oh? I hear that someone wants this general to die a very ugly death? At this moment, Li Junxian pushed open the door and interrupted the man's clamor. In the woodshed, a middle-aged man with his hands and feet tied sat on the ground. This man looked very fat, his face was full of wrinkles, and his eyes were very small, typical of squinting. From afar, he looked like a Maitreya Buddha. In front of this middle-aged man were two men in martial arts robes, their backs to him. Laughably, even though this fellow had been hooting the entire time, the two men had completely ignored him. Perhaps because no one had taken care of this woodshed in a very long time, Li Junxian sensed that there was a strange odor to it. But interrogating Sun Dafu was more important, so he didn't care. The two of them were just about to step forward and bow to Li Junxian, but the middle-aged man's mouth was even faster. "Puh! A bunch of hoodlums who rely on kidnapping and extortion. What kind of general are you?" He had come to Taiyuan on this trip. Li Junxian and the 100 horsemen he had brought were primarily meant to protect Li Tai from the shadows, so they normally wore the clothes of ordinary people. This was why the middle-aged man had mocked Li Junxian when he heard him call himself a general. "Impudent! Are your dog eyes blind? The one standing in front of you is—" Seeing that the middle-aged man was speaking rudely to Li Junxian, one of the men in the room angrily glared at him and prepared to attack. But Li Junxian pulled him back. "Lin Jiang, stop." Li Junxian waved his hand and said, "One who doesn't know is not guilty. This person must be the shopkeeper of Tongfu Inn, Sun Dafu?" Lin Jiang cupped his fists and replied, "Yes, General." Li Junxian nodded, and then he curiously asked, "How did you kidnap him? Why would he think that we are hooligans who kidnap and blackmail people?" Lin Jiang pursed his lips and replied in all seriousness, replying to the general, "This general snuck into the inn when it was dark and happened to see this fellow going to the outhouse. This subordinate tailed him and knocked him out when he wasn't paying attention. Then, I stuffed him into a sack and carried him back." Li Junxian was speechless. "It's no wonder Sun Dafu thought you were a kidnapper. Your methods are exactly the same as those of a scoundrel. You still have the nerve to say that? This old man has always emphasized that amiability brings wealth, and I've never offended you. But a young man like you tried to sneak attack me, an old man who doesn't know any martial arts. You don't have any martial virtues." Lin Jiang's earnest explanation had thoroughly infuriated Sun Dafu, but his words seemed lacking in confidence. Moreover, as he spoke, Sun Dafu clamped his legs together and leaned his body as far away from Li Junxian as possible, as if there was something he didn't want Li Junxian to see. Li Junxian naturally noticed Sun Dafu's little movements, and he curiously turned to Lin Jiang. Lin Jiang innocently said, "General, before this subordinate knocked him out, he hadn't finished peeing, so after I knocked him out, he immediately peed his pants." Li Junxian's lips twitched in speechlessness. Although it was true that he had ordered Lin Jiang to kidnap Sun Dafu, Lin Jiang's methods were truly, rather lacking in martial virtues. If you want to sneak attack someone, you can sneak attack them, but at least wait until they're done peeing before knocking them out. Sun Dafu's face turned red, and he wanted nothing more than to find a hole in the ground and crawl into it. Of course, before he did that, he would have to drag this immoral Lin Jiang down with him. Enough. This general's subordinate was just following orders. Shopkeeper's son, don't get angry with him. Besides, who hasn't peed their pants in their life? No one will laugh at you. Li Junxian saw Sun Dafu's embarrassed expression and hurriedly tried to resolve the situation. Lin Jiang and the other soldier almost laughed out loud, but when they saw that Li Junxian wasn't laughing, they suppressed their laughter. Sun Dafu glared at Li Junxian with hatred. If looks could kill, Li Junxian would have died many times over by now. But through his observations, he had realized that Li Junxian and the other two soldiers in the room truly were soldiers. Thus, even though he was furious, Sun Dafu was still able to restrain himself. Shopkeeper's son, I didn't invite you here today to take your money, but because this general has a matter to ask you. After a round of banter, Li Junxian turned serious and spoke to Sun Dafu. Invite? This is how you invite people? Sun Dafu glanced at the ropes binding him and sneered. Moreover, this old man has not committed any crime, nor has he broken any laws. You claim to be a soldier, so what right do you have to knowingly break the law and use such despicable methods to imprison this old man? Do you still have any respect for the laws of the country? When one couldn't win with their fists, one had to reason with them. Sun Dafu understood this, and he wanted to reason with Li Junxian right now. But Li Junxian had no desire to reason with Sun Dafu, because his fists were bigger, and more importantly, he truly had broken the law in this matter. He was in the wrong. Shopkeeper's son, there's no need to talk about such useless things. If you really did break the law, the one who captured you wouldn't have been this general, but the bailiffs of the government. Since this general had you tied up and brought here, if you don't truthfully answer this general's questions, I can't guarantee that you'll be able to leave this place alive. Sun Dafu's face instantly paled. He hadn't expected Li Junxian to be so direct and ruthless. He didn't know if Li Junxian really dared to kill him, but he didn't dare to gamble. After all, each person only had one life, and he greatly cherished it. This old man is just the shopkeeper of an inn. What could I know? If you want to ask, then hurry up and ask. Sun Dafu said after a few moments of silence. At this moment, Lin Jiang brought over a bench, and Li Junxian sat down in front of Sun Dafu. He placed his arms on his knees and leaned over to ask, the second master you spoke of before should be the owner of Tongfu Inn, Gao Yong, right? Gao Yong is the second son of the Gao clan. He has an older brother called Gao Su and a younger sister called Gao Ping, the concubine of the Wang clan's second son, Wang Hong. It is precisely because he has managed to climb up the branch of the Wang clan that Gao Yong has been able to flourish in Taiyuan City. Sun Dafu's pupils constricted in shock. He stared at Li Junxian and asked, word by word, "You're investigating the second master? Just who are you? Just who are you people?" Li Junxian unhappily said, "My time is limited, so it's best if you don't waste it. Answer my questions or else." Li Junxian glanced at Lin Jiang. The latter understood, unsheathed his saber, and placed it against Sun Dafu's neck. With a savage smile, he said, "Hey, shopkeeper's son, I recently learned a saber art that can remove the bones from a person's limbs without killing them. Do you want to give it a try?" Sun Dafu lived like a prince, so how could he possibly endure such a shock? He hurriedly shook his head and said, I'll talk. Take your saber away." "Humph. At least you know your place." Lin Jiang coldly snorted and then pulled his saber back. Sun Dafu nodded at Li Junxian and said, "What you said just now was correct. The second master truly is the owner of Tongfu Inn. Relying on his relationship with the Wang clan, the second master's business has been getting better and better, and he's opening more and more shops." Li Junxian nodded in satisfaction and asked, "Very good. This general will ask you again. This morning, did Wang Reni, the current Wang Xinyuan, go to your inn?" Sun Dafu was taken aback, a hint of panic in his eyes. Coming back to his senses, he hurriedly shook his head and said, Wang Xinyuan? This old man has never seen him before. Li Junxian sat up straight and gave Sun Dafu a meaningful smile. Sun Dafu felt his scalp tingle, and when he turned his head, he saw that Lin Jiang was also savagely smiling at him. Shivering in fright, he hastily corrected himself, Don't worry about me. Yes, young Master Wang really did come to the inn this morning. Li Junxian leaned over and asked, Who did he meet at the inn? Sun Dafu immediately shook his head and said, This old man doesn't know. Afraid that Li Junxian and Lin Jiang wouldn't believe him, he hurriedly explained, This old man really doesn't know that person's identity. I only heard that he's a good friend of young Master Wang and that he stayed at the inn yesterday. Moreover, the second master said that that person was an honored guest of his and would only be staying at the inn for 2 days. That honored guest rarely goes out and spends almost all of his time in his room. When he checked in, he specifically instructed that no one was to disturb him, so this old man still doesn't know that person's name. Li Junxian's eyes flashed, and after a few moments of silence he asked, Is that person still staying at the inn? Sun Dafu nodded. Yes. He's still there. That honored guest is staying in the heaven guest room. Li Junxian calmed down a little. He stood up and said to Sun Dafu, Shopkeeper's son, you'll have to suffer here for 1 night. Once this old man finishes his business tomorrow, I'll let you go. Don't think about running away. Even if you grow wings, you won't be able to escape. Moreover, if you're captured, this general can't guarantee that the brothers in the courtyard won't do anything to you. Sun Dafu's old face instantly became as pale as a bitter gourd. But the situation was stronger than him, so what else could he do but lower his head? Leaving the woodshed and entering the courtyard, Li Junxian muttered to himself, The most dangerous place truly is the safest place. Zhu Zeqing was just captured in the heaven guest room, and someone is already staying there. This person is truly skilled and bold. Zhao Kong. After sighing with emotion, Li Junxian shouted into the courtyard, and a soldier quickly ran over. This general is here. Immediately head to the provincial governor's residence and have Governor Wang bring soldiers to Tongfu Inn. Li Junxian ordered. Yes. Zhao Kong cupped his fists and left. Li Junxian called out, Lin Jiang. Lin Jiang cupped his fists and replied, This general is here. Li Junxian ordered, Leave 2 people to guard Sun Dafu. The rest of you, immediately follow this general to Tongfu Inn to capture him. Yes. Lin Jiang cupped his fists and left to pass on the order. Li Junxian meaningfully whispered, It's finally time to draw in the net. I hope that this is a big fish and not a small shrimp. Chapter 1934. At the same time, in the Wang clan ancestral home. As this matter concerns the survival of the Wang clan, this princess hopes that all of you will think carefully about where Second Elder and the others might have gone after fleeing the Wang clan. If Second Elder cannot be found in time, the Wang clan will be destroyed, and your good days will come to an end. In a side hall, Princess Tang sternly reprimanded a group of beautiful women dressed in gaudy silk dresses. Behind her sat an old woman with a head full of silver hair. Her clothes were rather simple, but her expression was rather dignified. This old woman was Wang Bing's wife, Madame Yang. She had been born a noble in the previous dynasty and had followed Wang Bing through the vicissitudes of dynasties and the ups and downs of troubled times. She was the supreme matriarch of the Wang clan. Ever since her son Wang Yu took over the Wang clan, the matriarch Yang and Wang Bing had retired from the clan. She no longer interfered in the affairs of the Wang clan, but Wang Kuei had colluded with Turkic spies and fled in fear of punishment. There was a high chance that the entire Wang clan would be dragged into the abyss, and the interrogation of Wang Hong's concubines required a woman of virtue and prestige. As Princess Tang was born in the imperial household of the Tang dynasty, her status in the Wang clan was rather high, but her seniority was still lacking. Thus, the astute Wang Bing had invited his wife to hold the fort. What Xiurong said just now was this old woman's intention. When the nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. If all of you still want to have a good life in the future, think carefully. If you can help the clan find second elder as quickly as possible, you will naturally be rewarded. After Princess Tang unfinished speaking, Matriarch Yang, who was sitting behind her, spoke. Xiurong was Princess Tang An's nickname. In the entire Wang family, probably only old Madame Yang dared to call her that. When the matrons standing in the side hall learned from Princess Tang, and that Wang Kuei had colluded with Turkic spies and fled with Wang Hong and Wang Xinyuan in fear of punishment, they were at a loss for what to do. Back then, they had married Wang Hong, this softy, only because of Wang Hong's family background. Now that Wang Kuei had fled in fear of punishment, the second branch of the Wang family was most likely finished, and it might even affect the entire Wang family. As the saying goes, husband and wife are birds in the same forest, but when disaster strikes, they fly away separately. At this moment, most of the matrons were thinking of packing up their valuables and running away after returning to avoid being implicated when the emperor punished the Wang family in the future. However, there was still a portion of them who, after hearing old matriarch Yang's words, still had a glimmer of hope for the Wang family. Old Madam, the clan has records of the businesses and private residences my father and husband have set up in Taiyuan City. As for the rest, how would we know? Husband and the others usually don't tell us. That's right. Husband rarely tells us these things. As for the old master, ever since this concubine married into the family, I have only seen him a few times. Husband has only favored Ping these past 2 years. Princess and old madam should ask her about this matter, right? Right. You should ask Ping 3 women were a show, and there were now 6 or 7 women standing in this room. The chattering was so lively that it was like they were singing a show. Princess Tang unfrowned. However, from what she heard, Wang Hong seemed to have only favored one concubine these past few years. Thus, she followed the matron's gazes and saw a petite, beautiful woman around 18 or 19 years old wearing a white silk dress. It has to be said that Wang Hong, this old fellow, is truly shameless. He's clearly in his 30s or 40s, but he still married an 18 or 19-year-old concubine. This is truly an old cow eating young grass, a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. Princess Tang, and had been living with Wang Yu in Suizhou these past few years. She had only heard a little about the second branch, but she had never seen this woman called Ping before. You are Ping? Seeing Wang Hong's concubines looking at one of the young women, Princess Tang walked over and asked the beautiful and petite woman. Greetings, Princess. This concubine is called Gao Ping. Husband has always called this concubine Ping. The young woman appeared rather nervous, but when she saw Princess Tang come over and ask her a question, she hastily bowed and respectfully answered. Princess Tang nodded and then asked, Ping second elder colluded with Turkic spies and fled in fear of punishment. From what master has learned, Wang Hong did not participate too much in this matter. If you can help the clan find second elder as soon as possible, Wang Hong might be able to escape punishment. Think carefully. Did Wang Hong and second elder do anything out of the ordinary in the past few days? Or did Wang Hong and second elder secretly set up other businesses in the city that the clan is unaware of? Hearing Princess Tang say that Wang Hong might be able to escape punishment, Gao Ping's eyes brightened. Although she and Wang Hong were an old married couple, just as those concubines had said, ever since she married into the Wang clan, Wang Hong had always doted on her. This made her feel love and warmth. There was still true love between them. If Wang Hong was innocent, the Wang clan's second branch would not have collapsed, and she and Wang Hong could return to their previous lives. With this thought, Gao Ping frowned and began to seriously recall. After a while, Her eyebrows trembled, and she suddenly said, This concubine remembers. Husband's behavior these past few days was normal, but yesterday, when my second brother came to the residence to visit me, he was dragged away by Xian Yuan. The two of them chatted for a while before my second brother left the Wang clan. Your second brother? Who's your second brother? Princess Tang unfrowned and asked subconsciously. Gao Ping said somewhat embarrassedly, My second brother's name is Gao Yong, and he's a businessman. He opened many shops in the city, and the largest inn in the city, Tong Fu Inn, was also opened by him. Gao Ping was born into a merchant family. In terms of family status, Gao Ping and Wang Hong were indeed not compatible. However, after marrying into the Wang clan, not only did Wang Hong not look down on her because of her background, he even tried his best to protect her. This was also one of the reasons why she wanted to help Wang Hong exonerate himself. After introducing Gao Yong's identity, Gao Ping continued. Early this morning, Xian Yuan suddenly told my husband that he was going out to meet a friend at Tong Fu Inn. Now that I think about it, there are too many coincidences. Yesterday, my husband introduced Xian Yuan to my second brother, and today, Xian Yuan went out to Tong Fu Inn. I have a feeling that they are hiding something from me and my husband. Moreover, Xian Yuan was imprisoned in the clan for a year before. Now that he has just been released, why would his friend be waiting for him at Tong Fu Inn? Wang Xinyuan, Tong Fu Inn. Princess Tong An's expression changed slightly. She had heard from Wang Yu that Wang Chungu had found Wang Xinyuan sneaking out of the residence this morning. Unexpectedly, he had gone to Tong Fu Inn. A few days ago, the Turkic Zhu Zeqing, who had appeared in the city, had also been staying at Tong Fu Inn. Now that Zhu Zeqing had been arrested, Wang Xinyuan was still secretly running to Tong Fu Inn. As for meeting a friend, who was he trying to fool? Who would meet a friend at an inn? Unless your friend was from another city. However, just as Gao Ping had analyzed, Wang Xinyuan had been imprisoned in the clan for more than a year. How could it be so coincidental that a friend from another city came to see him as soon as he was released? Therefore, Wang Xinyuan definitely did not go to Tong Fu Inn to meet a friend, but to have an ulterior motive. Then there must be something wrong with Tong Fu Inn. Apart from this, can you think of any other clues? Princess Tong An's mind was filled with thoughts. After she came back to her senses, she looked at Gao Ping and asked again. Gao Ping thought seriously for a moment, but finally shook her head and said, No, that's all I can think of. Other than that, I don't think there's anything strange these few days. Good. All of you are dismissed. If you think of anything else, come and tell me immediately. Princess Tong nodded and said to the women in the room, Yes. Wang Hong's concubines hurriedly left the side hall as if they had been granted amnesty. Only Gao Ping was the last to leave, a trace of worry on her face. Clearly, she was worried about Wang Hong's situation. Mother, what do you think? After the women left, Princess Tong looked at the old woman sitting at the head of the table and bowed. A wisp of wisdom flashed across the old woman's weathered eyes. She said meaningfully to Princess Tong Shirong, since you already have an answer in your heart, why ask me? Do as you wish. I believe that you can definitely save the Wang family. Princess Tong was slightly shocked, and she immediately felt respect for the old woman in front of her. She bowed and said, Then, this daughter-in-law will take her leave. I'll inform master and father now. Go. This old woman will return on her own. Matriarch Yang waved a hand at Princess Tong. In the face of danger, her expression remained calm and composed. This matriarch Yang had truly weathered all sorts of storms and experienced all sorts of ups and downs. In the main hall of the Wang family residence, after Princess Tong told Wang Bing, Wang Yu, and the rest of the group about what Gao Ping had told her, Wang Yu couldn't help but exclaim, Tong Fu Tavern, it's Tong Fu Tavern again. First, it was Zhu Zeqing. Who's staying there now? In the afternoon, Wang Chengwu had reported to Wang Yu that Wang Xinyuan had left the estate early in the morning to meet with friends in the city. He had not expected Wang Xinyuan to go to Tongfu Inn. Just like Princess Tong, he also felt that there was something wrong with Tongfu Inn. To be more precise, there was something wrong with the person Wang Xinyuan had met in Tongfu Inn. Princess, are you saying that the matter of second son colluding with the Turkic spies is also related to the patriarch's son, Wang Xinyuan? Third elder's eyes flashed, and he looked at Princess Tong and meaningfully. Princess Tong's phoenix-like eyes focused, and she said unhappily, Third elder, are you blaming my old master instead? Even if this matter is related to Wang Xinyuan, he's now a member of the second branch. When he was imprisoned, everything was fine. Who forced my old master to adopt Wang Reni to the second branch? He's causing trouble as soon as he's out. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame those people who forced my old master to adopt him to the second branch. You. Third elder was furious, but due to Princess Tong's status, he still restrained himself. He took 2 deep breaths and said, What are you saying? This old man was just asking casually. When did I ever blame the patriarch? Besides, it was the patriarch who willingly adopted Xinyuan to the second branch. Who in the estate would dare to threaten the patriarch? Seeing that third elder had given in, Princess Tong unsneered and did not continue to harp on this matter. Sitting at the head of the table, Wang Bing said solemnly, Enough. Right now, it's more important to find second son as soon as possible. After he finished speaking, he said to Wang Yu, since you and the princess both feel that there's something wrong with this Tongfu Inn, and the owner of this Tongfu Inn has a certain relationship with the second branch, then immediately send someone to the Tongfu Inn and investigate the guests inside. If you can find this Gao Yong, then that's even better. Perhaps he knows the whereabouts of the second branch. Yes, this son will arrange it right away. Wang Yu got up and cupped his hands to accept the order, then left the main hall with Princess Tong. Chapter 1935. Taiyuan City, Tongfu Inn. Bang, bang, bang. Lord Guard. Inside the heaven-class guest room, Zhao Dian was standing by the window, staring out. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, followed by a low voice. Zhao Dian's gaze turned cold, but he immediately relaxed because he recognized the identity of the person outside. He said calmly, Come in. The door wasn't locked. Xian Yi, dressed in black, pushed the door open and entered. After closing the door again, he quickly walked to Zhao Dian, cupped his fists and said, Lord Guard, I'm back. At this time, all the guests and waiters in the inn were resting. Naturally, Xian Yi couldn't enter from the main entrance of the inn. He could only climb in through the window like how he climbed out of the window earlier. However, even if he was given 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to climb through the window of Zhao Dian's room. He climbed in through the window of the Earth-class guest room next door. After that, he didn't even have time to change his clothes before he came straight to Zhao Dian. Did you find out anything? Zhao Dian didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Lord Guard, I found out that the fire in the long alley in the south of the city this afternoon was set by Wang Xinyuan. He knew that the King of Wei was going to personally escort a batch of supplies to Dragon Mountain, so he sent people to ambush in the south of the city in advance. He didn't expect to fall into the King of Wei's trap, and one of their assassins was captured alive by the other party. Xian Yi cupped his fists and slowly recounted the conversation between Li Tai and Su Yunqing that he had eavesdropped on at the post house just now. When he finally learned the truth about the fire in the south of the city today, Zhao Dian's face was as gloomy as water. He couldn't help but curse in a low voice, Wang Xinyuan and Wang Kuei, these 2 idiots. The other party deliberately revealed a little flaw and acted rashly. They really can't do anything right, but they're good at ruining things. Now that their whereabouts have been exposed, if they fall into the hands of the government, I'm afraid they'll ruin my plans. At this moment, if Zhao Dian were a modern person, he really wanted to say, don't be afraid of godlike opponents, but be afraid of pig-like teammates. With the current situation in Taiyuan City, they had already formed a confrontation with the government forces in the dark and in the open. No one could do anything to the other. They were just waiting for the reinforcements to arrive. Then, he and Wang Kuei would launch an all-out attack. Then, the entire Taiyuan City would be theirs. However, the two idiots, Wang Kuei and Wang Xinyuan, after a series of stupid actions, directly broke the stalemate. It was very likely that the government would find a breakthrough here. But what Zhao Dian did not know was that one of the carrier pigeons he had sent to Shili Kagan had been intercepted by Han Lijing. Even without Wang Xinyuan and Wang Kuei's disruption, Li Tai and the others had already learned of his plan. Although they would not be able to capture him in the short term, both the Great Tang border and Taiyuan City were now on guard. Even if his reinforcements really did come, they would find it very difficult to take Taiyuan City. But in any case, the disruption of Wang Xinyuan and Wang Kuei had accelerated Zhao Dian's exposure and failure. Xianyi cupped his fists and said, "Rest assured, Lord Wei. I heard from King Wei and Dugu Xian that Wang Kuei and Wang Xinyuan should have escaped. Wang Kuei has a secret manor near Longshan in the south of the city. Over the years, Wang Kuei has trained a group of killers in that manor. The killer captured alive by the Imperial Army today is one of them. The old woman that the Imperial Army took away from Baosheng Lane earlier is the killer's mother. Today, the provincial governor's mansion posted the portrait and reward notice of this killer all over the city. Wang Kuei wanted to send his men to kill the old woman to silence her. But he did not expect that the man he sent was killed by Wang Qingwu, the commander of the Wang family's shadow guards. Later, the old woman fell into the hands of the Imperial Army. The killer confessed everything about Wang Kuei. Now, Dugu Xian has sent the Imperial Army to Wang Kuei's secret manor in the south of the city. This Wang Kuei is really difficult to achieve great things. Zhao Dian frowned. Then, he reacted and asked, Did you just say Dugu Xian? What? From what you said, he is still alive and well. He is not dead yet? Chapter 1936. Coincidentally, just as Zhao Dian was ordering Xian Yi to gather his men to attack Taiyuan Relay Station, Li Junxian was also gathering his men and preparing to head to Tongfu Inn. Although the two sides had begun to move at almost the same time, there was a problem. Li Junxian only had 10-some cavalry under his command, while Zhao Dian had dared to attack the posthouse. This meant that he had more than 10-some subordinates, most likely 100 or 200. Moreover, these 200 couldn't all be staying at Tongfu Inn, as that would be far too conspicuous. As a result, Zhao Dian would need to gather his forces much more quickly than Li Junxian. And the residence that Li Junxian was temporarily staying in was less than 1 li away from Tongfu Inn. Thus, Zhao Dian couldn't possibly gather his men before Li Junxian arrived at Tongfu Inn. Lord Guard. Bad news. Zhao Dian was preparing to go out and see how things were going when he heard Xian Ye's voice. Zhao Dian's heart trembled. At this critical moment, he feared nothing more than an accident, and he feared nothing more than someone telling him bad news. He hastily opened the door and Xian Yi rushed in. After closing the door, he clasped his fist before Zhao Dian could ask anything. Lord Guard, your subordinate went to the innkeeper's room to ask him to gather our men, but there was no one in the room. Innkeeper's son, he disappeared. Disappeared? Zhao Dian frowned, a bad premonition rising in his heart. Back when they had first arrived in Sourcepeak City, they hadn't chosen to stay in the Tongfu Inn. Because there were many of them, it would be difficult for them to hide if they stayed in the inn. It would be very easy for the innkeeper and waiters to notice that something was amiss. So, only Zhao Dian, Xian Yi, and Skyhawk stayed in the inn while the rest of them hid in various parts of the city. But after Wang Xinyuan and Wang Kuei surrendered to them, Zhao Dian learned that the owner behind the scenes of the Tongfu Inn was actually related to the second branch of the Wang family. As a result, he didn't have to worry about all of them moving in and alerting the innkeeper or waiters. He directly ordered Xian Yi to gather all of their spies in the city into the inn and stuff them into the empty guest rooms of the inn. As for those that couldn't be stuffed, Gao Yong and Wang Kuei helped to arrange for them to stay in a few houses near the Tongfu Inn. It was because of this that Xian Yi had thought of asking the innkeeper, Sun Dafu, for help when Zhao Dian ordered Xian Yi to gather his men. Only in this way could they gather all their men in the shortest amount of time. But Xian Yi had never expected that Sun Dafu, who had been staying at the inn for the past few days, would actually disappear. Didn't Gao Yong say that Sun Dafu would be staying at the inn to cooperate with us? How could he suddenly disappear? Could it be? Zhao Dian muttered in dissatisfaction. Then, he suddenly thought of a possibility, and his face instantly became extremely gloomy. He frowned and said in a deep voice, "Not good. It's very likely that someone has set their sights on Tongfu Inn. We've been exposed. Then what should we do?" Xian Yi was shocked when he heard this and asked subconsciously. Then, he hurriedly cupped his fists and said, "Lord Guard, please evacuate immediately. Your subordinates are willing to risk their lives to escort you." Chapter 1937. What? A group of people is coming from the east? Aren't the relay station and the provincial governor's mansion in the north? Why are there people coming from the east? And they are so fast? In the alley behind Tongfu Inn, Zhao Dian was shocked when he heard Sky Eagle say that there was a group of people coming from the east. However, when he came to his senses, he could not help but feel a little strange. When he found out that Sun Dafu, the innkeeper of the inn, had gone missing, he guessed that Sun Dafu might have been captured by the provincial governor's mansion or the imperial army. However, the provincial governor's mansion and the relay station were in the north of Taiyuan City. Even if the other party had sent people to surround the inn, they should have come from the north. Moreover, the other party should not have come so quickly. After all, Tongfu Inn was in the south of Taiyuan City. How many people are coming from the other party? After forcing himself to calm down, Zhao Dian regained his composure and looked at Sky Eagle as he asked in a low voice. Sky Eagle cupped his fists and said, "Reporting to the guard master, the other party does not have many people. There are only about 10 of them. All of them are riding fast horses. They will catch up in a while. Do you want me to bring a few people to deal with them? 10 of them? All of them are riding fast horses?" Zhao Dian's heart sank when he heard this. Of course, he knew that Taiyuan City would implement a curfew system at night. Those who dared to ride horses in public in the middle of the night either had their heads kicked by a donkey, or the other party really had an official background. Obviously, these 10 or so cavalrymen coming toward the inn were definitely from the Tang Empire's government. When did the government arrange such a surprise army near the inn? This was a question that Zhao Dian could not figure out no matter how hard he tried. However, there was no time for him to think about this at this moment. He had to make a decision. Although the cavalry coming from the east didn't have many people, they were fast. If he didn't pay attention to them, the other party would first miss the inn and then chase after them from behind. Or, the other party might guess their intentions and go to the post house to report in advance. However, if he followed Sky Eagle's suggestion and sent people to intercept the cavalrymen, on the one hand, they only had about 100 people. If they split their forces to deal with the cavalrymen, it would definitely weaken the power to attack the relay station. On the other hand, although the other party only had about 10 people, he did not know how strong they were. The people he could send to intercept them were very limited. If they could not win or the noise during the battle attracted the Yamans patrolling in the city, the other party would still send people on fast horses to chase them. Who would have thought that a cavalry troop of over 10 people would actually cause Zhao Dian's current situation to seem to have fallen into a dead knot that could not be untied no matter what? Guard master, quickly give the order. If those people catch up any later, our operation might be exposed. Seeing Zhao Dian standing on the spot without saying a word, Sky Eagle was anxious and could not help but urge. Zhao Dian's eyes flashed as he recovered from his deep thoughts. Just a moment ago, he suddenly thought of a plan that satisfied both sides and was extremely bold. Taking 2 deep breaths, Zhao Dian looked at Sky Eagle and Xian Yi and said in a deep voice, Xian Yi, Sky Eagle, the 2 of you lead these people to attack the relay station immediately. You must capture Li Tai alive. Leave 10 people behind and follow me back to the relay station. What? Sky Eagle and Xian Yi turned pale with fright when they heard this. They hurriedly said, Guard master, you must not do this. Xian Yi hurriedly said, the other party only has about 10 people. I'll lead people to eliminate them now and then chase after them to assist Guard master in attacking the relay station. We definitely won't waste any time. That's right. Guard master. The other party only has about 10 people. Why do you have to personally take the risk? Sky Eagle also said. Zhao Dian's face was extremely grim. He looked at the 2 people before him and said coldly, After knowing that I'm in the inn, the other party only has about 10 people who dare to surround the inn. Why do you think this is? This is because either there's a top-notch expert among them, or these 10 over people are only the enemy's vanguard. After they find out the actual situation, the enemy's main force will immediately surround us. Hearing Zhao Dian's words, Xian Yi and Sky Eagle calmed down one after another. Indeed, if there was a top-notch expert among the enemy, then they would be utterly unable to finish the battle in a short period of time. If there was a large force following behind the enemy, then it would be even more troublesome. Chapter 1938. Immediately send a message to our men near the inn. Tell them to bring their weapons to the inn immediately. After Zhao Dian returned to the heavenly guest room, he could already vaguely hear the da-da-da sound of horse hooves coming from the east street. At this moment, he called over a subordinate and instructed him. He did not know the exact name of this subordinate because he had too many subordinate. Xian Yi, Sky Eagle, and the others had all taken away expert. The 10 people left by his side were the weakest among them, so he naturally did not remember their names. Zhao Dian had planted a total of 200 people in Sorespeak City. Xian Yi had taken away 110 people, and he had left 10 people with him. In the houses near Tong Fu Inn, there were still 80 or so of his men. Previously, due to the urgency of time, Zhao Dian did not wait for everyone to arrive before giving the order to attack the post house. But now, since he had chosen to use himself as bait and guard the inn, then these people naturally had to be called over. After all, if the cavalry coming from the east was weak, Zhao Dian was confident that he could take them down with these people. If the opponent was strong, it did not matter even if he lost, because his goal of restraining the opponent would have been achieved. Yes, Guard Master. That person cupped his fists respectfully to Zhao Dian, then turned around and left. If you want to put on a show, you have to do it all the way. The few of you wait in the room next door. If this cavalry comes straight for my room after entering the inn, then find an opportunity to kill your way out. Zhao Dian instructed the other 9 people. Yes. Everyone cupped their fists and accepted the order. Then, they turned around and went out to the earth-ranked guest room next door. Bang bang bang! Not long after this series of arrangements was completed, Zhao Dian heard the door of the inn being directly knocked open from the outside, emitting a few loud bangs. Almost all of the sleeping guests in the inn were woken up, and some with bad tempers couldn't help but curse loudly. Who the F***ck is this? Why aren't you sleeping at night? What are you knocking on the door for? What is the innkeeper doing? Who the F***ck is knocking on the door in the middle of the night? Which bastard is it? Why don't you try hitting me again? In the midst of the scattered curses, many rooms that were originally in darkness lit up one after another. Then, a crowd of people could be seen moving about. Obviously, those were the guests who had been woken up. They came out of their rooms to see what was happening outside. With just one look, the people who were cursing earlier immediately shut their mouths. More than 10 men with weapons in their hands were standing in the hall with murderous looks on their faces. Although there were only a dozen of them, they gave off the aura of hundreds and thousands of people. Aura was a mysterious thing, but it did exist. A general who had been through hundreds of battles and a new recruit who had just joined the army would definitely give off a different feeling when they stood in front of each other. The 100 cavalry was the most mysterious and elite force of the Great Tang. Each of its soldiers was an elite, and as the commander of the 100 cavalry, Li Juanxian's strength was even greater. Amongst all the Tang generals, he could be considered one of the strongest. This group of elites, standing in front of the crowd, naturally exerted an invisible pressure on them. Although the Tang revered martial arts and many of their refined guests carried sabers and swords with them, for Li Juanxian and his men to charge into an inn with weapons in the middle of the night clearly meant that they had come with ill intentions. If not for the fact that they were all dressed rather neatly and had no bandit faces like One-Eyed Man or Scarred Face on them, the guests would have thought that they were bandits. Even if they weren't bandits, Li Juanxian's group still gave off the impression that they were not to be trifled with. Thus, those guests who had been about to come out of their rooms and curse when they saw Li Juanxian's group swallowed their words and dejectedly returned to their rooms. It wasn't that they were cowards, but that Li Juanxian's group was simply too powerful. Anyone who dared to provoke them would have to have been kicked in the head by a donkey. In truth, Li Juanxian didn't think much of these guests. Ever since he had entered the inn, his eyes had never once paused on them. His head was raised as he scanned the small wooden plates above the doors of each room on the second floor, recording the room number of each room. As the largest inn in Taiyuan City, Tongfu Inn had divided its rooms into heaven, earth, human, and common. There was only one heaven room, but it was so expensive that ordinary people couldn't afford it. The lower the level of the rooms, the more there were, and correspondingly, the cheaper each night. Thus, Li Juanxian only needed to find the heaven character on the wooden plates in front of each room. Over there. Li Juanxian's eyes focused as he pointed at the westernmost room and sternly said, "Chenfu, Shin Tu, the two of you guard the front and back doors of the inn. The rest of you follow me upstairs." Yes. Everyone bowed and received their orders. 2 of them went to the front door and the back door of the inn, while Li Juanxian led the rest of them up the stairs to the heaven guest room on the west side. "There's no need to knock. Just open the door." One of the 100 horsemen was just about to knock on the door when Li Juanxian stopped him. As the saying went, delay could lead to change, and he did not want any changes. After saying this, he walked past the 100 horsemen and kicked open the door. In truth, the door wasn't locked. The moment the door was kicked open, Li Juanxian's group rushed in and saw an ordinary-looking middle-aged man casually drinking tea at the tea table in the center of the room. The middle-aged man was taken aback by the intrusion of Li Juanxian's group, and then he frowned. "Who are you? Why have you barged into this one's room?" Li Juanxian frowned when he saw that there was only one person in the room, a seemingly refined middle-aged man who didn't seem to know any martial arts. He began to wonder if his previous judgment had been wrong, but since he was here, he had to get to the bottom of this matter. He signaled the people around him with his eyes, and several of the riders went to guard the door and the windows to prevent the middle-aged man from escaping. Li Juanxian sat down across from the middle-aged man and stared at him. Instead of answering his question, he asked, "Why? There's no need for you to know who we are. First, tell me who you are. Where did you come from? Why have you come to Taiyuan City? The middle-aged man scowled in displeasure and coldly snorted. Good sir has barged into someone else's room in the middle of the night. It's fine if you don't give an explanation, but now you're questioning me? Truly tyrannical. Do you really think there's no law in Taiyuan City? Li Junxian couldn't be bothered to waste words with him, so he bluntly said, Don't waste words with me. I'll give you one more chance. If you can't clearly explain your background, we'll arrest you and send you to the authorities. Once we're there, we'll slowly talk to you about the law. Arrest me? This one has not committed any crime, nor has he stolen or robbed. What right do you have to arrest me? The middle-aged man coldly sneered. Li Junxian chuckled. You're not going to speak? Come, arrest him and send him to the provincial governor's residence for interrogation. Although he couldn't be sure of the middle-aged man's exact identity, since he was connected to the Wang clan's second branch, and on the way to the inn, Li Junxian had learned that Wang Kuei had fled for fear of punishment. This meant that the Wang clan's second branch truly had colluded with Turkic spies. Since this middle-aged man had secretly met with Wang Xinyuan, this meant that he was in cahoots with Zhao Dian. At the very least, he was someone Zhao Dian had sent to liaise with the Wang clan's second branch. After saying this, Li Junxian got up and prepared to leave. The two horsemen at his side began to approach the middle-aged man, clearly intending to capture him. A hint of panic flitted across the middle-aged man's face, and he hurriedly said, Are you from the authorities? Fine, I'll speak. This one is Yu Dexing, a native of Yunzhou. I came to Taiyuan to buy some goods. Once I'm done, I'll return. A merchant of Yunzhou. A playful smile appeared on Li Junxian's face as he indifferently asked, Then do you have a talisman scroll? A talisman scroll was equivalent to a modern letter of introduction. In ancient times, one needed an identity card to stay in an inn. However, this identity card was not the same as the modern one, but something similar to a letter of introduction. Although ancient China did not have an information system to manage household registers, it had a complete household register system long ago. In order to distinguish between people, the ancients had invented travel permits, door tickets, fish tokens, and tooth tokens to prove one's identity. The majority of ancient China rarely had the opportunity to travel, and only a few people had the need for such things. If an official or merchant was on a business trip or engaged in an official foreign activity, they would have a talisman scroll or a talisman scroll. These talismans, sections, and scrolls were all proof of identity for staying in an inn in the early days. They were equivalent to modern letters of introduction. Later on, courier scrolls and letter tokens were also proof of travel. Without a proof of travel, it was impossible to stay in an inn, especially one run by an official. In the Tang Dynasty, officials of rank 5 and above had a fish token issued by the imperial court to prove their identity. If an ordinary person wanted to travel, they had to report it to the prefect inspector or fangjeng. The prefect inspector or fangjeng would then report it to the local yamen, and the prefect or secretary would issue a talisman scroll, letter of introduction, upon approval. In truth, the travel permits of the Ming Dynasty were similar to these things. I do. The middle-aged man seemed to believe that Li Junxian was an official. He nodded and then took out a yellowed paper from his bosom and placed it on the table. Li Junxian took it and began to carefully examine it. A few moments later, Li Junxian put down the paper and smiled at the middle-aged man. This talisman scroll is forged so well that it looks almost real. If this general hadn't seen the talisman scroll from Yunzhou, you really might have fooled me. Come, seize this man. The middle-aged man grimaced and immediately backed away, harshly saying, My talisman scroll really can't be any more real. Good sir is deliberately making things difficult for a deer as a horse. Just what are your intentions? Do you really think that this Yu is easy to bully? After saying this, he picked up the teacup on the table and smashed it to the ground. At the same time, there was a rush of footsteps outside the door, and then a group of people charged in, sabers and swords in hand. At a glance, there were 20 to 30 people. It was clear that some of the reinforcements Zhao Dian had sent earlier had already arrived at the inn. Chapter 1939. Humph. Finally willing to reveal your true face? In the heavenly guest room of Tongfu Inn in Taiyuan City, Li Junxian showed no fear in the face of these menacing 20 to 30 men. On the contrary, he would have found it strange if this middle-aged man had no helpers. The more subordinates he had, the higher his status on Zhao Dian's side. There was even a chance that he was Zhao Dian himself. The middle-aged man was now standing close to the door, and the 20 to 30 people who had broken in with their sabers and swords had automatically moved to the left and right of the middle-aged man. The two sides were now in a standoff. The middle-aged man looked at Li Junxian and said, "Since good sir insists on pestering this you endlessly, don't blame this you for being impolite." After he finished speaking, he looked at the guards beside him and said, "When going out to do business, it's inevitable to encounter some bandits. For the sake of safety, this you specially hired some guards. If your excellency is from the government, then please reveal your identity. If your excellency is here to make things difficult for this you, then these guards of mine won't show you any mercy." A hint of derision appeared on Li Junxian's face. "Reveal my identity? You still don't have the right to know who I am. In my view, you should stop pretending. If you didn't have firm evidence, I wouldn't have personally led my men here. Tell me, what is your true identity? Where is your leader, Zhao Dian?" Zhao Dian? The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed. He had clearly not expected Li Junxian to know his identity. After all, ever since he had infiltrated Taiyuan City, he had been operating in secret. Other than Wang Kuei and Wang Xinyuan, he had never revealed his identity to anyone else, so how did Li Junxian know his name? He had no idea that the secret letter he had sent to the steppe this morning had already been intercepted by Han Lijing and brought to Taiyuan City. What leader? This one doesn't know what you're talking about. Come, see the guests out. The middle-aged man was only a few moments stunned before he ordered his men. Please leave. My master does not welcome you. Two saber-wielding soldiers stepped forward and sternly barked at Li Junxian's group. Could you be Zhao Dian? Very good. Li Junxian had noticed the expression on the middle-aged man's face, and he couldn't help but think of a possibility. Thus, he decisively ordered the 100-some cavalry in the room, "Capture him." Yes. The 8 horsemen in the house answered loudly. Then, a series of clanging sounds could be heard. The horsemen drew their weapons and charged at the middle-aged man. You are courting death. The leader of the guards beside the middle-aged man snorted coldly. He was not afraid at all and led a few people to greet them. As the weapons clashed, the room was suddenly filled with the sound of ding ding pring pring. In terms of numbers, Li Junxian's side had no advantage in a battle of 8 against 30, but the 100-some cavalry were the most elite soldiers of the Great Tang, and each one of them was a top-notch expert. In terms of individual strength, the 100-some cavalry had the advantage. In addition, there was limited space in the room, and with so many people, it was very difficult to move freely. If this had been an open area outside the room, the middle-aged man's side would have been able to use their numbers to pincer him. But there was only so much space in the room, and the 30-some of them had basically filled the room. And this was only because the middle-aged man was staying in the most expensive room of Tongfu Inn, the Heaven Room. Compared to the other rooms, this room was not only luxuriously decorated, but it was also large enough. If they had been staying in a shared room, it would have been a problem for them to even squeeze in. Thus, even though they had the advantage in numbers, the middle-aged man's side had not been able to gain much of an advantage. On the contrary, after a few rounds, Several of them had been stabbed in the vitals and dropped to the ground. The middle-aged man stood motionless in the doorway, 2 guards on his left and right. Li Junxian also did not move. He was coldly watching the middle-aged man to prevent him from escaping. As for the battle, he was not very worried. Although the 100-some cavalry were not strong enough to fight against 10 or 100, he was confident that his men would be able to deal with an enemy 3 times their size. Sure enough, after the 2 sides fought for more than 10 rounds, the middle-aged man's side was already showing signs of defeat. There were more than 10 people lying on the ground. The 2 guards beside the middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Master, we will escort you to retreat first." In his panic, this fellow had almost let his tongue slip. Li Junxian's sharp ears had picked up on this small slip of the tongue in the chaos, and his eyes brightened. This middle-aged man really was a big fish, and there was a high chance that he was Zhao Dian himself. Thus, Li Junxian wasted no more time. As the saying went, to capture bandits, capture the leader first. He blinked up to the middle-aged man and sneered. "Humph! You want to escape? You won't be able to escape tonight." As he spoke, Li Junxian reached out with his hand to grab the middle-aged man's shoulder. The middle-aged man hastily backed away, but he was far slower than the Grandmaster Li Junxian. As Li Junxian's hand got closer and closer, a hint of panic appeared in his eyes. At this moment, the 2 guards at his side attacked. 2 sabers slashed at Li Junxian's arm. If Li Junxian continued forward, he would have been able to grab the middle-aged man before the sabers fell, but once he did, he would not have the time to pull back his arm. Although Li Junxian was a powerful martial artist, he was far from being invulnerable. How could a body of flesh and blood stand against sharp sabers? Thus, Li Junxian chose to retreat for now. At the same time, he unsheathed his sword and brazenly charged at the 2 guards at the middle-aged man's side. Clang clang. Saber and sword clashed. These 2 were only at the Qi transformation realm, so how could they possibly contend against Li Junxian, who had already reached the Grandmaster realm? In just 2 or 3 moves, Li Junxian had found a small flaw in their saber technique. Once the time was right, he cut their throats with a single slash. While he was fighting with the 2 guards, the middle-aged man was hastily backing away. As the 2 guards fell, clutching their necks, the middle-aged man hastily turned around and ran out of the room. Too powerful. Li Junxian gave him the feeling that he was simply too powerful. Although Xian Yi was also a grandmaster, he was still lacking compared to Li Junxian. In just 2 or 3 moves, he had killed 2 Qi transformation experts. Even if all the 30-some people in the room had attacked together, they probably wouldn't have been able to do anything to Li Junxian. Humph! Li Junxian sneered as he saw the middle-aged man fleeing faster than a rabbit. With a tap of his foot, the middle-aged man felt a gust of wind, and then he saw Li Junxian standing in front of him. "You still want to run? I already said that you won't be going anywhere today. Obediently come back with me," Li Junxian indifferently said. A hint of panic flitted across the middle-aged man's face. Suddenly, he heard hurried footsteps outside the inn. A smile appeared on the middle-aged man's lips as he turned to look at the entrance and then said to Li Junxian, Run? This god never said anything about running. No matter who you are, all of you will die here today." Li Junxian followed the middle-aged man's gaze and saw that 50 to 60 armed warriors had entered the entrance of the inn. Cough, cough, of course, not all of them were wielding weapons. If one looked carefully, one could see that 10-some of them were unarmed. Chun Fu, who had been assigned by Li Junxian to guard the entrance of the inn, had been forced to retreat into the hall on the first floor of the inn by these 50 to 60 warriors. He was not a grandmaster like Li Junxian, so it was only natural for him to feel uneasy in the face of so many people. Shintu, who had been guarding the back gate, had hurried over when he heard the commotion at the front gate, but the 2 of them were still useless against 50 to 60 people. Li Junxian finally understood why the middle-aged man had suddenly become so confident. These 50 to 60 people, and the 30-some in the room made for a total of 80 to 90 people. But the 100 horsemen only had 10 people. This made the situation even more difficult to deal with. But Li Junxian was not afraid. On the contrary, he was rather excited. The more people that came to the middle-aged man's rescue, the higher his status. At this moment, he was almost certain that this middle-aged man was Zhao Dian. Heh! I didn't think that you would have so many subordinate. It seems like you're Zhao Dian. Upon seeing the situation, Li Junxian showed no signs of nervousness. He looked at the middle-aged man and chuckled. Seeing that the situation was settled, the middle-aged man no longer put on an act. He neither admitted nor denied it, but asked, "Just who are you? How did you know of this god's identity?" Although the middle-aged man did not directly admit it, his words were basically a tacit admission that he was Zhao Dian. Li Junxian turned serious and indifferently said, "Remember, the one who captured you today is Li Junxian of the Great Tang's 100 Cavalry. As for how this general knew of your identity, you will understand once you follow this general to the Yamen." 100 Cavalry. Li Junxian. You're actually Li Junxian? Zhao Dian was flabbergasted by Li Junxian's report of his identity. Not even with Kongming's wisdom could he have predicted that the 100 Cavalry commander of Chang'an would suddenly appear in Taiyuan City. In this case, it was no surprise that his identity had been exposed. After all, few people in the world could compare to the 100 horsemen's ability to gather information. So that's how it is. No wonder shopkeeper's son suddenly disappeared. No wonder you were able to find this place. However, this god came to Taiyuan and managed to take down the 100 Cavalry commander of the Great Tang. That's not a loss. Zhao Dian turned to Li Junxian and sneered. Take down? Do you think that victory is already in your grasp? Li Junxian jeered. Do you think they're faster, or this general is faster? As he spoke, Li Junxian vanished. A moment later, he appeared at Zhao Dian's side, one hand clamping down on Zhao Dian's shoulder while the other clamped down on Zhao Dian's neck. The warriors in the hall had no time to react, only enough time to shout, "Brother Li, you're in the middle of nowhere! Lord Guard! Release Lord Guard!" Chapter 1940. Qinke, why haven't you gone to bed yet? In Taiyuan Post Station, Iron Egg's room, Iron Egg couldn't help but ask when he saw Li Tai come in. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening in modern times. Most people had already eaten dinner and gone to bed. In the post station, other than the Imperial Guards on night patrol and Han Lijing and the others who went to Wang Kuei's manor near Longshan, the rest of the people had already returned to their rooms after dinner. It can't be helped. The ancient people's biological clocks were like this. Iron Egg was sitting at the table and reading a book. This was the mathematics textbook for the next semester of Yanhuang College. Li Zishuan had already compiled it before he entered the military camp, but it hadn't been printed on a large scale yet. After all, Li Zishuan was his brother-in-law, so Li Zishuan had opened a back door for Iron Egg in this regard. "I can't sleep." Li Tai walked in and sat across from Iron Egg without hesitation. When he saw the book in Iron Egg's hands, he couldn't help but mutter, "Iron Egg, you're not being kind. Everyone is busy working for the telegraph relay station, but you're the only one enjoying the special treatment from the Yamacho. This is unfair competition." Speaking up to this point, Little Fatty's face was full of indignation. That look was a bit like a modern school sports meet, where students were all participating in the sports meet on the field, but someone discovered that a student was secretly studying in the classroom. Iron Egg put down the book in his hand and said with a speechless face, "What unfair competition? Master gave me the mathematics textbook for the next semester. It's not like you haven't read it before." It wasn't a secret that he had the mathematics textbook for the next semester. At least, Li Tai, Meng Wenhao, and Qin Huayu already knew about it. Moreover, they had borrowed it from Iron Egg before, and Iron Egg had never rejected it. The world seems to be stable now, but I always feel that it will soon enter an eventful period. As a student of Yanhuang College, I have to follow my master's wishes and establish a heart for the world, a life for the people, and a life for the past. In the second half of the year, when the war between the Tang Empire and the Turks starts, Yanhuang College will definitely not be able to stay out of it. At that time, we might have to run around like we are now. Therefore, I want to use the time every night to prepare for the next semester's classes in advance to avoid falling behind in my studies. Iron Egg suddenly sighed and said softly as he closed the book and placed it on the table. Just as he said, when Li Zixuan founded Yanhuang College, he hoped to cultivate a group of people who were truly useful to the country and the people, not bookworms who only knew how to study. Therefore, whether it was the Battle of Guan City in April, the killing of locusts in June, or the establishment of telegraph relay stations in Taiyuan and Yunzhou, all of these events more or less had the shadow of Yanhuang College's students. As the first batch of students of Yanhuang College, and as Li Zixuan believed, they were the golden generation of Yanhuang College. Iron Egg, Li Tai, and Li Ku's cohort of students had high hopes for Li Zixuan. Li Zixuan hoped that not only could they study well in the academy, but that in the process, if the country needed them, the students of the academy had to be there for them. If the Tang Empire's golden age wanted to last forever, it needed too many people who could serve the country. This was the main reason why Li Zixuan risked universal condemnation to establish the engineering school and Yanhuang College. Chapter 1941. Taiyuan was a large city in the north, so the Taiyuan post house wasn't small at all. There were a total of 28 individual buildings in the post house, and each building had a few to over 20 guest rooms. In the dark night, 8 Imperial Army soldiers stood on the roofs of the buildings in the east, west, south, north, southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest of the courier station. Using the weak light from the stone lanterns in the courtyards of the courier station, the 8 Imperial Army soldiers stood on high points and meticulously scanned the entire courier station. Below them, there would be a group of soldiers patrolling with torches every once in a while. Although Dugu Xian didn't expect Zhao Dian to send people to attack the post house tonight, the defense of the post house didn't relax because of this. There were both open and hidden sentries. If an unknown person broke into the post house, these Imperial Army soldiers on night duty would be able to immediately discover it and issue a warning. This was the Imperial Army. No matter when or where, they wouldn't abandon their superb military discipline. Whoosh! In the night, a thin needle with a cold glow flew straight toward the Imperial Army soldier on the east side of the building. It wasn't daytime, and there was no moon tonight. The Imperial Army soldier on the roof naturally couldn't see this thin needle. However, when the thin needle was about to reach him, he could still feel the turbulence in the air. But at this time, it was already too late for him to dodge. The thin needle silently pierced through the Imperial Army soldier's throat without any reservation. He didn't even have time to make a sound before he clutched his throat and fell straight to the ground. Based on the way he fell, when he hit the ground, he would definitely make a sound and attract the attention of the other troops. But at this moment, a black shadow flew over. Before the Imperial Army soldier fell, he caught the latter's body and gently placed him on the roof. As there was only a faint light in the courtyard and no light on the roof, the fall of this Imperial Army soldier didn't attract the attention of the hidden sentries at the southeast and northeast corners that were closest to him. After putting down the Imperial Army soldier's body, the black shadow didn't stop and headed straight for the hidden sentries at the southeast corner. Whoosh! Whoosh! Using the same method, the black shadow quietly eliminated the 3 hidden sentries that the Imperial Army had placed in the southeast, east, and southwest of the post house in less than 15 minutes. At this point, All the hidden sentries in the east of the post-house had been eliminated by the Black Shadow. It had to be said that this shadow's strength was indeed formidable. The Black Shadow flew to the east wall of the post-house. Below the wall, there were actually more than 100 people hiding. The Black Shadow said to the people below in a low voice, "The hidden sentries on the east side of the post-house have been eliminated. Follow the plan." "Yes," everyone responded in a low voice. Then, a dozen or so Black Shadows rushed to the front and back doors of the post-house, while the other 90 or so Black Shadows leaped over the wall and entered the post-house. The Black Shadow flew to the east wall of the post-house. Below the wall, there were actually more than 100 people hiding. The Black Shadow said to the people below in a low voice, "The hidden sentries on the east side of the post-house have been eliminated. Follow the plan." "Yes," everyone responded in a low voice. Then, a dozen or so Black Shadows rushed to the front and back doors of the post-house, while the other 90 or so Black Shadows leaped over the wall and entered the post-house. A dozen or so Black Shadows rushed to the front and back doors of the post-house, while the other 90 or so Black Shadows leaped over the wall and entered the post-house. Chapter 1942. What's going on outside? Outside the room, Dugu Xian called over the guard at the door and asked in a low voice, "General, there's a warning from our brothers at the east of the post-house. General who has already led his men there." The guard at the door cupped his fists and replied, "I'll go and take a look." Dugu Xian's expression turned grim. "Wang Tong, Guojian, the two of you stay here to ensure His Highness' safety. If the situation turns bad, immediately evacuate with His Highness." The two of them looked at each other, then cupped their fists and said in unison, "General, we'll go with you." They were Dugu Xian's personal guards. Naturally, wherever Dugu Xian went, they would follow. Dugu Xian's expression was cold as he said sternly, "This is a military order. Do the two of you dare to disobey a military order?" Seeing Dugu Xian's anger, Wang Tong and Guojian lowered their heads, not daring to say another word. Dugu Xian tightened his grip on the sword in his hand. This was the sword that had accompanied him in battle for many years, and it had never left his side. However, he had been seriously injured this time and had almost died. Because of the severity of his injuries and the doctor's warning that he could not use martial arts for the time being, his sword had been removed by Dugu Feiying and placed on the sword rack. When he heard the sound of an enemy attack from outside, Dugu Xian had not hesitated and had come out with his sword. As the leader of this army, there was no reason for him to be a coward in the face of a great enemy. "I'll leave this place to the two of you. Remember, even if the two of you lose your lives, you must ensure His Highness' safety," Dugu Xian said in a low voice as he patted Wang Tong's shoulder, then left with his sword. His tone was no longer as stern as before. It was just that his back looked a little tragic and desolate. Dugu Xian had a strong premonition that the enemy tonight was no ordinary person. The guess that Li Tai had mentioned to him earlier might very well be true. Zhao Dian had really gathered all his men to launch a sneak attack on the post-house. "Yes, General." The two personal guards felt a little sour in their noses as they looked at Dugu Xian's bleak back and cupped their fists. The location of the incident was actually very close to Dugu Xian's room. It didn't take long for Dugu Xian to arrive at the scene. At that moment, the Imperial Army and a group of unidentified men in black were already engaged in battle. There were many scattered torches on the ground, which meant that they had already lost a lot of men. Only the Imperial Army would carry torches. The people who came to ambush the post-house definitely wouldn't have brought their own torches. With the light from the scattered torches on the ground and the stone lanterns in the courtyard, Dugu Xian was able to make out the situation. The other side had around 100 men, while the Imperial Army had more than 200. While it seemed like they had the advantage in numbers, the Imperial Army had no advantage in the overall situation. Among the group of black-clothed men, there was a thin and slightly shorter man who was constantly flying through the crowd. Every time he waved his sleeve, there would be a few flashes of silver light. Then, a few Imperial Army soldiers would be killed by those flashes of silver light. He was truly a harvester of human lives. It was as if he had entered a realm where no one could stop him. It's him. Dugu Exayan narrowed his eyes. Although the man was dressed in black and had his face covered, Dugu Exayan still recognized him at a glance. It was the masked assassin who had severely injured him in the southern part of the city this morning. The hidden weapons used by the two of them were exactly the same, as well as the way they used them. In the entire Taiyuan city, there was probably no other person who could use hidden weapons to such an extent. Seeing this, Dugu Exayan quickly stepped forward, wanting to join the battle. Although he had not yet recovered from his serious injuries, and although Gong's son Liang had warned him not to use force for 7 days, he couldn't just stand by and watch his men get slaughtered in front of him. Not only was there a martial arts master on the other side, but the strength of the rest was also not low. Dugu Exayan could clearly see that among the more than 100 men, there were at least 6 or 7 martial arts masters at the peak of the Qi transformation realm. There were nearly a dozen martial arts masters at the late stage of the Qi transformation realm. Although these people were fighting individually on the battlefield without any cooperation, the Imperial Army soldiers without a commander had already been beaten into a daze. There was no need for them to cooperate in battle. The main reason was that Xian Ye's individual strength was too strong. As the only martial arts master on the battlefield, he was like a living king of hell. If he wanted to take someone's life, that person would fall in the next moment. Such tyrannical strength was completely terrifying. Although the Imperial Army soldiers had undergone a long period of training and were not afraid of death, none of them wanted to die in such a humiliating manner. Therefore, under such circumstances, Dugu Exayan had no choice but to take the field himself. General! The Imperial Army soldiers at the back were the first to notice Dugu Exayan. At first, they were surprised. After all, they had more or less heard about Dugu Exayan's injuries. After the surprise, they were ecstatic. A large part of the reason why the Imperial Army was being suppressed and thrown into disarray was because they did not have a commander on their side who could match the top martial arts masters of the enemy. In other words, they did not have a backbone. With Dugu Exayan's appearance, this problem was easily solved. This was because in the eyes of the Imperial Army, Dugu Exayan was an invincible existence. Even if he had not recovered from his injuries, he was still the spiritual faith of the Imperial Army. Nodding slightly at the Imperial Army soldiers, Dugu Exayan quickly walked into the rank. Circulating qi in his dantian, Dugu Exayan roared, "Generals, listen up! Set up the formation! Goose formation!" This was a roar that contained qi. At this time, although the courier station was filled with battle cries, Dugu Exayan's roar still clearly reached the ears of every Imperial Army soldier. In the morning, he had been severely injured by Xian Yi and had almost died. After a day of recuperation, although Gong's son Liang had ordered him not to fight, this did not mean that he did not have the ability to fight. In truth, after a day of recuperation, Dugu Exayan had recovered about 50% of his qi, and he was now able to fight against Xian Yi. But after this battle, he was likely to be even more injured. At best, his cultivation would be damaged, and at worst, he would lose his life. Dugu Exayan naturally understood the consequences, but with the enemy before them and Li Tai's safety threatened, he could no longer care so much. He had to fight and buy time for Li Tai to retreat. Yes, sir. A loud roar instantly woke up the Imperial Army from their stupor. This battle-hardened army immediately had a backbone. The 200 or so Imperial Army soldiers responded loudly. Immediately after, the Imperial Army soldiers that were fighting with Xian Yi and the others quickly broke away from the battle. Then, according to the formation that they had been trained in, they quickly split into 3 rows. The left and right wings were arranged in an echelon formation, forming an inverted V shape. This was the goose formation. The tip of the inverted V was where the strongest fighting force of the Imperial Army was gathered. Dugu Xin was naturally in the middle. In this way, not only could he protect the 2 flanks and the rear, he could also prevent the enemy from circling around. Facing this group of martial arts experts, Dugu Xin wanted to use the goose formation to defend the east side of the courier station. On one hand, he could prevent the enemy's top experts from slaughtering his own soldiers. On the other hand, he could quickly stabilize the situation and buy time for Li Tai's safe retreat. Otherwise, if any of these martial arts experts went around them to find Li Tai, it would be a great threat to Li Tai and Iron Egg. However, he did not know that before he came, someone had already gone around the Imperial Army to find Li Tai. Seeing the Imperial Army get into a battle formation under the command of a young general, the leader of the men in black could not help but frown. This was because he knew that fighting alone was the strength of this group of people, and cooperation in battle formations was the strength of the Imperial Army. Once the Imperial Army got into formation, it would not be easy for them to slaughter the Imperial Army as they had before. The situation of the battle could very well be reversed. After seeing the young general's appearance, the leader of the men in black could not help but sneer. Dugu Xin? Still want to resist stubbornly? I wonder how much strength you have now? From the voice, who else could this leader be but Xian Yi, who had tried to assassinate Dugu Xin in the morning? You'll know how much strength I have after you try. Dugu Xin's face was flushed. It seemed that he had recovered to his peak condition. He answered Xian Yi indifferently, then raised his sword to the sky and ordered loudly, "Kill! Kill! Kill! Kill!" The 200 Imperial Army soldiers had been suppressed for a long time, and their stomachs were already filled with anger. Dugu Xin's shout of "Kill!" completely ignited the flames of vengeance in their hearts. The Imperial Army soldiers all responded loudly, and under Dugu Xin's lead, they charged toward the group of men in black with weapons in hand. In an instant their momentum was like a rainbow. Dugu Xin's calm and confident tone made Xian Yi feel a little uneasy. For a moment, he couldn't help but start to doubt the poison he had concocted. According to common sense, once his weapon or hidden weapon scratched the enemy, even if the enemy didn't die immediately, they would die within 2 hours of the poison acting up. Dugu Xin had been poisoned by several weapons in the morning, but not only was he completely fine, he was even able to wield his sword. This did not make sense. Could it be that his strength has really recovered completely? But how is that possible? Xian Yi could not help but think to himself. The reason why more than 100 of them had dared to attack the post house tonight was that they had concluded that Dugu Xin had not yet recovered from his injuries, and that his strength was less than 10%. If Dugu Xin had really recovered completely, then their surprise attack tonight would have no chance of success. Xian Ye's heart was in a mess at this moment. Kill. Although Xian Yi had thought so much, it was only a matter of a moment. Seeing Dugu Xin leading the Imperial Army to attack, Xian Yi felt a little uneasy, but he did not show any weakness on the surface. He waved behind him and shouted the word "Kill," then led the charge toward the Imperial Army. To be precise, he was charging toward Dugu Xin. To capture the thief, one must first capture the king. This was a decisive battle between kings and kings. Chapter 1943. Reporting. Night, Grasslands, Tujua Royal Court. In the evening, the Grassland coalition of 10 tribes launched a fierce offensive against Tuli, causing Tuli to suffer disastrous losses. After Xieli received the battle report, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He specially set up a banquet in the royal court to entertain the 10 tribal chiefs. At this time, the banquet had already ended for quite some time. Xieli was just about to rest when he heard a series of urgent shouts coming from outside the tent. Xieli couldn't help but frown and said, "Come in." Although he didn't like to be disturbed when he was sleeping, Xieli knew in his heart that the soldiers outside the tent dared to come to him at this time. They definitely had urgent military information to report to him. The curtain was lifted. A soldier dressed as a Tujue, but his face looked like a Han, quickly walked in. The soldier came to Xieli's front. His hands tightly clenched a slip of paper. He bowed to Xieli and saluted. Reporting to Khan, Guard Lord sent urgent information from Taiyuan. Khan, please take a look. Finished speaking, he raised the letter in his hands above his head. The soldier's respectful attitude and thorough etiquette made Xieli's heart feel very comfortable. His anger from being disturbed from his rest earlier immediately dissipated a little. Speaking of which, the reason why he wanted to plot against the Central Plains, other than the rich land and abundant natural resources, there was another important reason. The people of the Central Plains had been educated in etiquette for thousands of years. The dynasties of the Central Plains also had a set of strict hierarchical system. Those in lower positions were generally respectful and courteous to those in higher positions. The grassland people, on the other hand, were mostly boorish men who liked to be straightforward. In Xieli's view, these people were all barbarians who needed to accept the education of the Central Plains etiquette. Only in this way could he demonstrate his status and authority. This was also one of the important reasons why he put Zhao Dian, a Han, in an important position. It was because he wanted to move the system of the Central Plains imperial court and the etiquette and education that had been passed down for thousands of years in the Central Plains to the grassland. Only in this way could he be likely heir and become a truly respected emperor. Oh? Urgent information from Zhao Dian? Let this Khan take a look. When he heard that it was an urgent intelligence sent by his trusted minister, Xieli attached great importance to it. He quickly walked up and took the letter from the soldier's hand before opening it and reading it carefully. The great Tang's Prince of Wei is leading the teachers and students of Yanhuang College to build a telegraph relay station in Taiyuan. I implore the great Khan to send a troop of 10,000 wolf riders, to coordinate with the enemy to take down Taiyuan City, to capture the great Tang's Prince of Wei and the teachers and students of Yanhuang College alive. After reading the contents in his mind, Xieli put away the letter and fell into deep thought. Obviously, he was weighing the feasibility of Zhao Dian's plan. After all, not long ago, because he had believed in Wu Jie's plan, he had lost 50,000 elite wolf cavalry on the border of the Great Tang, all of them under his command. In the end, not only had he failed to obtain any of the Academy's secrets, he had even lost soldiers. Now that Zhao Dian had requested him to send troops to infiltrate Great Tang, he had no choice but to be cautious. When did Zhao Dian send out this letter? After thinking for a moment, Xieli was still somewhat moved by Zhao Dian's plan. He turned around and asked the soldier. The messenger soldier thought for a moment before replying to the Great Khan, based on the time, this secret letter should have been sent out by the Guard Lord this morning. Xieli nodded thoughtfully. On the other side, the soldier seemed to have something to say but hesitated. What else do you have to report? Xieli seemed to have sensed something as he turned his head to look at the messenger soldier and asked. Replying to the Great Khan, according to the usual practice, the Guard Lord would use 2 carrier pigeons to send 2 letters each time he sent a letter back to prevent any accidents on the way. However, this time, the Guard Lord sent a carrier pigeon back to the grasslands, but we only received a single carrier pigeon. Chapter 1944. Jia, why did Father call you over just now? In a large tent to the west of the Eastern Turkic royal court, a beautiful Turkic woman lifted the curtain and walked in. A tall and mighty black-robed man was seated in front of a couch, wiping a spiked club in his hand. Upon seeing the black-robed man's actions, the woman's cheerful steps suddenly stopped. She stood a few steps in front of the black-robed man and couldn't help but ask, "Wu Jie, are you leaving the steppe again?" The black-robed man in the tent was none other than the Turkic state teacher, Wu Jie. Last month, after failing to infiltrate the Great Tang and steal the secrets of Yanwang College, Wu Jie had fled back to the steppe and returned to his old life. Even though Wu Jie and Ashina Shir had lost more than 40,000 elite Turkic wolf cavalry in the battle on the Great Tang border, Wu Jie's terrifying strength and his irreplaceable role on the steppe meant that Xieli had only punished Ashina Shir and not Wu Jie. At that time, Wu Jie had fought several top experts within the borders of Great Tang, and he had also fought the half-steppe Grandmaster Xian Qing of Longhu Mountain outside the Dragon Gate. He had suffered some injuries, but after more than a month of recuperation, his injuries had basically healed. "Kagan wants me to lead soldiers to Taiyuan tomorrow." Hearing the woman's voice, Wu Jie's action of wiping his mace suddenly stopped, not even bothering to raise his head as he replied faintly in his hoarse voice. Listening to the meaning in his words, when Xieli told him to go to the tent just now, it should be to arrange for him to lead 10,000 wolf cavalry to go to Taiyuan and cooperate with Zhao Dian from the inside and outside to thoroughly take down Taiyuan city. Looking at it this way, Xieli had made up his mind to take the risk according to Zhao Dian's plan. "What? Father wants you to lead soldiers to the Great Tang again? How can this be?" The woman cried out in alarm and then angrily said, "Last time, when father sent you to Chang'an, you almost didn't return. Although your martial arts are formidable and unparalleled, the people of the Central Plains have a saying that 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Moreover, the martial arts world of the Central Plains has as many experts as the cloud. If you are surrounded by them, you will definitely be injured again. Why did father give you such a dangerous mission? No. I have to go find father." After saying this, the woman turned to leave. The woman's full name was Ashina Shuyan. She was the pearl of Xieli Kagan's palm and one of his most beloved daughters. "Stop." Seeing that Ashina Shuyan was about to go find Xieli, Wu Jie finally raised his head, his back facing Ashina Shuyan as he said, "I am the imperial teacher of the great Zhou dynasty. Enjoying the worship of tens of thousands of people, it is only right for me to share the burden of the great Khan. Besides, no one can hurt me." This last sentence showed Wu Jie's confidence in his own strength. Even though he was slightly injured when he fought with Xian Qing before the Dragon Gate, he didn't think that Xian Qing's strength was higher than his. It was mainly because he had escaped from Cloud Mountain to the Dragon Gate. Before he fought with Xian Qing, he had already fought with Mo Huai, the bearded guest, Dugu Xian, Dugu Feiying, Li Zixuan, and many other top experts. At that time, he had used up more than half of his true qi, which was why he had suffered a small loss in the hands of Xian Qing. If both of them were at their peak, he believed that Xian Qing would be defeated within 100 moves. Ashina Shuyan stopped in her tracks and turned around. She stomped her feet angrily and said, "Father has so many warriors under his command. Why do you have to take the risk? What mission did father send you to Taiyuan for?" As the little princess of the Eastern Turkic Khaganate, Ashina Shuyan's loyalty to the Eastern Turkic Khaganate was unquestionable. Therefore, Wu Jie didn't hide it from her. After thinking for a while, he said, "Half a month ago, Zhao Dian led the wolf guards to sneak into Taiyuan. Now, he and his men are trapped in Taiyuan city. Apart from him, there are also King Wei of Great Tang and some teachers and students from Yanwang College. The Kagan wants me to lead a team of wolf guards to sneak into Great Tang and surround Taiyuan city. Together with Zhao Dian, not only can we take down the city, we can also capture King Wei of Great Tang and the teachers and students from Yanwang College back to the grasslands." "What? Father sent you to attack Taiyuan?" Ashina Shuyan was shocked when she heard this. She had thought that Xieli had sent Wu Jie to infiltrate the Great Tang like the last time, just to carry out a mission to steal information. She had never imagined that Xieli would send Wu Jie to attack the Great Tang's largest city in the north, Taiyuan City. That was not the Great Tang's border, but the inner pass. Not to mention the height and thickness of Taiyuan City, if Taiyuan City was besieged, the surrounding provinces and counties would immediately send reinforcements. Xieli sending Wu Jie on this mission was no different from sending Wu Jie to his death. How many soldiers did father give you? After coming back to her senses, Ashina Shuyan asked. In Ashina Shuyan's view, to penetrate deep into the heart of the Great Tang's Guanzhong and attack a major city like Taiyuan City, it would be impossible to succeed without at least 100,000 soldiers. 10,000 elite wolf guards. Wu Jie indifferently replied. Then he added, "This is Zhao Dian's plan. He has already made arrangements in Taiyuan City. 10,000 soldiers is enough to take down Taiyuan City. Moreover, the situation on the steppe is unstable, and Kagan is concentrating his forces to encircle Tuli. He can't spare too many men." But when she heard the name Zhao Dian, a hint of anger flashed across Ashina Shuyan's face. She angrily stomped her foot and indignantly said, "Zhao Dian? It's that treacherous and hateful Han Zhao Dian again. Father sweat, he must have been possessed by the devil. Ever since he was placed in an important position by father, not only did he bring the hypocritical habits of the Central Plains to the steppe, he also pushed aside all of father's trusted generals. Father's prestige on the steppe is now far inferior to before. Also, Wu Jie, you are the state teacher, the #1 expert of the steppe. Zhao Dian doesn't dare to do anything to you on the surface, but I feel that once his position under father's command is stabilized, he will definitely push you aside just like he did everyone else. Previously, you failed to sneak into Yanhuang College to steal information and then fled to the Great Tang border. Not long after that, Zhao Dian took the initiative to personally infiltrate the Great Tang. I feel that he wants to use this opportunity to prove himself in front of father so that he can replace you in the future. This time, you are leading troops to attack Taiyuan City. Even if you succeed, the credit will not fall to you, but to Zhao Dian. In the words of the Central Plains, you are making a wedding dress for someone else." Hearing this, Wu Jie didn't feel indignant. Instead, he maintained a calm expression. Because Ashina Shuyan's words had taken a bit too long, Wu Jie had already picked up his mace and continued to wipe his face. After Ashina Shuyan finished speaking, Wu Jie only gave a faint and then calmed down and continued to busy himself with the matter at hand. Seeing this, Ashina Shuyan was furious. She couldn't help but walk up to Wu Jie and fiercely stomp her foot. "Wu Jie, I've said so much to you, why haven't you responded at all?" Wu Jie didn't immediately respond to Ashina Shuyan. He put down the silk cloth in his hand and carefully examined the mace. After making sure that the stains on it had been wiped clean, he stood up and looked at Ashina Shuyan. "Yenner, I don't care. Yenner, I don't care about this contribution. If Zhao Dian wants it, he can take it. But I must go on this trip to the Great Tang, and I have my reasons. I also have my reasons." Hearing the latter half of Wu Jie's words, Ashina Shuyan couldn't help trembling, her right hand involuntarily stroking her left wrist. Beneath her sleeve was a priceless black carp bracelet of exquisite craftsmanship. The last time they came back from the Great Tang, Wu Jie had told her that he met a little girl in Cloud Mountain who wore the same jade bracelet as her. He had asked her if she knew this girl, but Ashina Shuyan said she didn't. Since then, there had been some estrangement between the two of them. Now, the relationship between the two of them had become even more estranged. Ashina Shuyan was clear in her heart that the reason Wu Jie had to go was most likely because of the girl who wore the same bracelet as her. "In addition, I also want to know who I am. Wu Jie picked up his mace and was about to walk out of the tent, but just as he was about to reach the entrance, he suddenly stopped and muttered to himself before opening the tent's curtain and walking out. Inside the tent, when she heard Wu Jie's last sentence, Ashina Shuyen's face suddenly turned pale and a trace of panic appeared in her eyes, as if she had foreseen something terrible was about to happen. Wu Jie's sentence seemed to have no beginning or end, but it also seemed to have a deep meaning. The amount of information contained in it was too much. Wu Jie. Wu Jie. After a long while, she finally came back to her senses, then quickly turned and ran out of the tent, frantically calling Wu Jie's name. Southeast of the grassland, Tuli's troops, Tang Jian's tent. At this time, Tang Jian was sitting at the table, reading a book and drinking tea leisurely. The book was a good book, and the tea was naturally good tea. It was the immortal tea that was currently popular in the Great Tang, and countless rich people fought over it. This thing was not available in the grassland because the people of the grassland basically didn't like to drink tea. Besides, even if they liked to drink tea, they couldn't buy tea leaves like the immortal tea. After all, this thing was in short supply in the Great Tang. These tea leaves were naturally brought over by Tang Jian from the Great Tang. If he didn't drink it now, it would only benefit Tuli and Ni Shu Tua. Grand Duke, you still have the leisure to read and drink tea? At this time, a tall man with sword-like eyebrows walked in and saw Tang Jian leisurely sitting at the table. He couldn't help but sigh helplessly. This man was the captain of the guards who escorted Tang Jian to the grassland, Yu Minghu. Oh, Minghu, you're here? Hearing this voice, Tang Jian put down the book in his hand, raised his head, and smiled indifferently. What's wrong? What happened? Now that we're all alive and well, why can't this old man have the leisure to read and drink tea? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.